Sorry, what was the item?
Kennedy,
Oh, here.
Aspenlighter, Tidswell, Boyette, Repsis, Mayor Cole.
Here. First order of business tonight are three sets of minutes, May 27, June 9th, and then the June 16th special meeting. Council, do we have either changes or individual motions or collective motion? Councilmember Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve all 3 minutes, May 27th, June 9th, and June 16th, 2025 as read.
Motion, Councilmember Gulick?
I will second, but I will also note that the May 27, there is a correction to be made. Item number 3, Councilmember Aspenlighter abstained rather than opposed that particular one.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyette. Could that be part of your motion? And obviously, Councilmember Gulick, that's part of your second. Okay. So we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if in favor of the motion for approval of all 3 sets of minutes with the correction to the May 27th meeting minutes, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Council courtesies this evening, I would like to start us off, if I may, by remembering our county commissioner and public servant and friend, John Oslin. We were, I think, all shocked to hear on Thursday of Commissioner Oslin's death in a tragic airplane crash. Many of the people in this room, and certainly on this dais, and hundreds, if not thousands of members of our community had frequent contact with John over many decades, first in his role as county road superintendent, and then in more than 20 years as county commissioner. I don't want to pretend to speak for all the members of the city council or our community, but there's no doubt that John was a dedicated public servant. He devoted his life to faithfully serving the people of Yellowstone County. He was a man of principles that were typically straightforward and consistent, not unlike his rather predictable clothing that almost always consisted of boots, jeans, and a white shirt, and a cowboy hat if he was going to be outside. Speaking personally, we usually agreed on matters of public policy, but if we didn't, I still found him to be respectful and agreeable even in the midst of disagreement. We wish our county brethren down on the 3rd floor all the best as they work to fill John's or to choose John's replacement. But the reality is that they're going to have some very big boots to fill in that. So just want to remember John this evening. Other council courtesies this evening? Any other council courtesies? Okay, and also John's family. I would ask us all to lift them up in our thoughts and prayers. We have no proclamations this evening. Are there any council reports from other organizations that we serve on behalf of the city? Seeing none, city administrator report. Chris.
Mayor and council. So yeah, I've got a handful of things here. First, just an awareness, and that is you'll recall as we worked our way through this budget process, one of the cost-saving measures was a change in our work comp carrier provider from MMIA over to state fund. We were certainly well aware of litigation that was going to be taking place from MMIA trying to work their way through the process, but some very recent actions, not getting too deep into the weeds, is that there was a hearing here just in the past 10 days to put a temporary restraining order on those of us, Billings and 6 other cities making the change. We did submit comment and submitted declaration on that and wanted the judge to be well aware of what the impact will be to the city of Billings. Some other cities joined in that if the judge were to grant that restraining order and force us to stay with our current carrier or make other changes. So it's just an FYI for you to be aware that we are pursuing that to the best of our ability, looking out for the interest of our citizens, our community, as you recall several $100,000 automatic, would be saved there. So that's the first item. Second up is a possibility. So just to please keep your calendars or let me know if absolutely this will not work. The police contract, the agreement between police officers and the city of Billings has been agreed upon in concept. It goes to a vote of the bargaining unit. I believe that's set for July 1st. If that all goes smoothly, I am considering asking for a special meeting within just a day or so after that, so that we could get the contract approved or reviewed and approved by this body, if it's inclined to do so, so that we avoid retro pay and other things of that nature, because our regular meeting is July the 14th. So, just let me know if that's out of consideration for July 2nd or 3rd. Obviously, we wouldn't do it on the 4th, but if those are available, we'll be looking to possibly hold a special meeting, which is pretty rare for us to do. We did receive some ex parte communication after 3 o'clock today. A couple of critical points. I think you may hear from them this evening, both pertaining to the wastewater rates. So just be looking in your inbox. They came in shortly after 3, some from legal counsel, from representing PAR, and I think possibly Phillips 66. We have had a couple meetings, as I've let you know, in the weekly. They've been very positive that we're working through and expect to come to a mutually agreeable conclusion there. But I just wanted to flag that ex parte communications for you. And then also there was one that came in from the chair of the Public Works Board. Nothing new in that information. It was the same information that the board had taken in the past, but wanted to flag that for you. And last, but certainly not least, announce that you have in your inbox a press release and go out to the press as well, that Chief Matt Hopple, interim fire chief, is being named permanent fire chief for the fire department. So we're excited. Matt has dedicated his career to this community and this service. Particularly impressed with his work and his dedication to look both inside and outside the fire service for leadership training and opportunities to serve our community well. So we're excited to have Matt step up to our director team. So with that, Mayor, that's all of my announcements.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. That brings us then to our public comment on non-public hearing agenda items. So tonight, that's number 1, our consent agenda with all of its subparts, and also the initiatives at the end of our meeting. Everything else, please wait for your public comment, because there'll be an opportunity for each of those as part of a public hearing on regular items 2 through number 7. But if you would like to comment today on anything under item 1, our consent agenda and all those subparts, or the council initiatives on our agenda, this is your opportunity to do so. I just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. We need your name. We also often ask for your address. It is helpful to have your address for our clerks, because then they can track down the right spelling of your name and things like that. But it's not absolutely essential, and if you're not comfortable with that, just tell us what ward you live, or generally where you live. We're not going to insist on your address. Is there any public comment at this period or at this time on item number 1? Please come forward if there is. Any public comment on item number 1? No one is standing up, so before I close it, one final call before we close our public comment period. No one is coming forward. I'm going to close. Councilmember Astor, may I close it? Okay. All right. Public comment period is closed. We'll look to council for separations. Councilmember Astor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd ask to separate agenda item 1K and 1L for purposes of recusal. My company represents those two developments, so I'll be sitting that one out.
Very good. Thank you. Other separations this evening. Councilmember Neese.
1C.
1C, guaranteed maximum price amendment number 2 for Amen Park Recreation Campus General Contractor. Very good. Other separations. Any other separations? Councilmember Kennedy. 1M, resolution ordering improvements identified in work order 2025 missing sidewalk program. Any other separations? Seeing none, we will move on to the non-separated items. Council, is there a motion? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the consent agenda items tonight except for 1C, 1KL, and 1M, as stated.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Rogers. Discussion. Councilmember Boyette, do you have any discussion? Okay. Let me start off. I just want to call out a note of thanks and recognition on item 1H for the donation, or I apologize, 1I, the $280,000 grant that will help with the remodeling of Fire Station number 5. The Facilities Department under John Caterino, in particular Tricia May, were instrumental in tracking down the availability of those dollars, and that's going to save our taxpayers a lot of money. And we really appreciate when staff steps up like that, and they need to be recognized. So thank you, John. Thank you, Tricia. Councilmember Boyette.
Well, we'll go one step further and then we'll go to 1H, which is the Town Pump Charitable Foundation, giving a donation to the public library. It's always nice to say thank you to everyone who donates to the city. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Further discussion on the motion? Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll proceed. The motion is for approval of all the items that were not separated. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. First separated item was item 1C, guaranteed maximum price, amendment number 2, Amon Park Recreation Campus. Councilmember Neese, that was your separation. Would you like to begin our discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, I separated that out so I could vote against that. I still believe that although this is a great concept, I think we have moved too fast and too far on this. We're only still in committee discussing how this will be operated, and we're already building it yet. So at this time, I will just vote to oppose it, but be consistent in the way I've voted in the past. So I'll let someone else make a motion.
Very good. Councilmember Ripsis and Councilmember Aspliner.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve item 1C.
Councilmember Aspliner is the second. Councilmember Neese, Councilmember Aspliner, do you speak to your motion? Okay. Discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the vote. Motion is for approval of item 1C. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Councilmember Neese votes in opposition. All other members in favor. Motion passes. Next separated item is for recusal purposes by Councilmember Aspliner, item 1K, preliminary major plat, Clearwater Estates subdivision. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve item 1K.
Councilmember Ripsis makes the second. Councilmember Boyette, Councilmember Ripsis, do you want to speak to your motion?
Mayor, I would just ask if the movement would be okay with approving both K and L at the same time.
Just withdraw your motion and make a new motion?
So I'll K and L at the same time. I just was thinking they're two different items, so I was going to do one at a time, but K and L is fine.
Okay. If there's no objection to any other council members, we will let that friendly amendment stand. Any discussion by either of you? No? Any other discussion by any other council members? Okay, so you have a motion before you for approval of both K and L. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next,
Scott didn't vote on that one.
oh, with Scott Aspliner, Councilmember Aspliner not voting. Thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Kennedy, your separation was item 1M, resolution ordering improvements for the work order involving the missing sidewalk program. Would you like to start us off?
Yes, I would. I would ask if Debbie could come up. Debbie, I received a call today from a gentleman that lives on the north end of 25th Street West. And he was very concerned because he said they don't have any school kids or whatever using that area. And he was unaware of that they were going to come in and put a sidewalk in front of his house. Can you just tell me on 25th Street what was going on there?
Sure. I actually have some slides, but I'll just try to do this, and then if we need more, I'll pull up a slide or
Sure.
two to show it. So 25th is about getting kids to Meadowlark Elementary. They're all the north-south streets that go up, or Meadowlark is to the west. Let me see what direction it is. And these would fill in those north-south streets so that kids could get that access. So it is specifically for safe routes to school.
Okay. Were all the people notified on that street?
They
Did you-
were. I can check the list, and we can speak after this, but I can pull up the letters that were sent and that mailing address and just make sure they were on there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Very good. Is there a motion relating to this item? Councilmember Gulick.
I move to approve item number M.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Ripsis. Councilmember Gulick, Councilmember Ripsis, either of you like to speak to your motion? No? Further discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval of item 1M. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll move to a vote. Motion is for approval. Again, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Then that concludes item 1 and brings us to our regular agenda, specifically item number 2. Denise, would you read item number 2?
Public hearing and special review 1000, a special review to allow a new bar and casino in a 2,925 square foot addition to an existing 5,730 square foot building, generally located at 840 Shiloh Crossing Boulevard. Zoning Commission recommends conditional approval and adoption of the findings of the 9 criteria.
Very good. Karen is our presenter.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This special review is to allow an all beverage liquor license with gaming.
And Karen, I'll ask you to put that mic as close to your mouth. We get complaints that people can't hear if we don't ask for that. So thank you.
Shall I start over? This is a special review to allow an all beverage liquor license with gaming on a property in Shiloh Crossing subdivision. Special review uses are special exceptions. They're not allowed uses by right. So the review criteria allows us to review it and place conditions that might eliminate any kind of non-compatibility with the project. Sorry, this surrounding zoning is all corridor mixed use too. And the subject property is already developed. It's the former Rio Sabino's building. And I have a few photos for you. This is looking east, to the south, and to the north. The Zoning Commission held their public hearing and is recommending approval based on the proposed findings and conditions. It is consistent with the growth policy and the infill development policy. The well-planned site layout with existing parking and landscaping. It has appropriate access and existing infrastructure, and it is compatible with all of the surrounding development. The conditions of approval are for the all beverage license with gaming and to allow an expansion of the existing building, which includes outdoor seating. No outdoor music or public announcement system will be allowed. All lighting on the building and parking will have full cutoffs so that they shine directly to the ground and not on adjacent properties. Lighting of signs will comply with zoning code. The sign code criteria when when the sign permit is approved. The applicant will comply with all other city codes, and all other limitations on expansion shall apply in accordance with the zoning code restrictions. This is a site plan submitted by the applicant. You can see the expansion area. And this is a rendition of the proposed layout showing the bar, casino, and restaurant, and the outdoor seating is to the northeast corner there in the pink section. And then a few renditions of the exterior of the building. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Questions for Karen? Councilmember Denise?
Thank you, Mayor. Karen, do you know if this is a new license being brought to the city of Billings, or is it being moved from one location to another?
I don't know that it's a new license. The applicant's agent is here, and they can give you any more information that you.
Yeah, when the applicant agent speaks, if we could ask him that, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
And okay, we'll ask you, Karen, if there is any presentation or anybody from the applicant who would like to address the council. But other questions for Karen? Any other questions for Karen? Okay, Karen, is there any presentation by the applicant, or would they like to address us? I guess so.
Mayor and City Council members, I'm John Johnson with Johnson Restaurant Group, and this is our project. What our proposal is to bring Jay's Pub and Grill to Billings. And I know there was a question about the liquor license. It is an existing license. I can't remember where it came from. I know it came from an Asian restaurant, but it was an all beverage with gaming, and that's why we bought it. So,
Sorry, you don't know the location of the city it came from?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, it's an exciting project. We also own the Old Chicago in Billings, in case you didn't know that. But so we're excited. This is one of our concepts out of Casper, Wyoming, where I live, and it's definitely more restaurant and bar than it is casino. But you know, the casino obviously helps fund some of the operations. So we're hoping for your support this evening, and I stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for John? Not seeing any. You're always welcome in Billings.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. We'll open up for a public hearing then. This is a public hearing on Special Review 1000. Is there any public comment on item number 2? If so, please come to the podium. Any public comment on item number 2? Before I close the public comment period, is there any public comment? No one is coming forward, so we will close. Councilmember Kennedy?
Mayor, having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve Special Review 1000 and adopt the findings of the 9 criteria as adopted as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Councilmember, thank you very much. Councilmember Absent-Lighter indicates a second. Would either of you like to address your motion?
I would just say the building sat empty. It's good to see someone moving in right away, having had a restaurant in my life. It's a lot of, time is money. So I know what they're looking at, and they need these permits and the licensing to go forward, and I wish you luck.
Very good, thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? I will just comment on our standard condition about outdoor music, item number 2. This is not suggesting any sort of change on this. There's been no request to change this, but I just comment that, and I think this is our standard language that says no outdoor music or outdoor public announcement system will be allowed with the application. The intent of that, of course, is not to cause problems for adjacent property owners from loud music, from bands late into the night, that sort of thing. We all get that. But there's no exception for even a server who wants to sing happy birthday, to somebody, or gentle background music coming out of a speaker that can't be heard at all on the adjacent property. So I'm sure our interpretation of this will be reasonable, but I would encourage the staff in the future to think whether we can't fine tune that to just address the real problem, which is noise above a certain decibel level outside the boundaries of that immediate property, and just be more specific and surgical about that condition. That would be my comment. Any other discussion on the motion before we proceed to a vote? Seeing none, the motion is for approval of item 2. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. Councilmember Neese voting in opposition, all other council members voting in favor. Brings us to item number 3. Denise, would you please read item number 3?
Public hearing on first reading ordinance for zone change 1066, generally located at 844 Grand Avenue. Zoning Commission recommends approval and adoption of the 10 review criteria.
Back to Karen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a zone change from NX2, which is mixed residential 2, to a corridor mixed use 1 on the corner of 9th and Grand Avenue. The existing zoning for NX2 allows just residential 2 to 8 units. Siting standards are required and home occupations are allowed, but businesses are not. And these uses wouldn't be considered suitable for this parcel on this corner of an arterial street. The CMU1 district is intended to accommodate those commercial corridors. The uses in the CMU1 district are more flexible than the mixed residential, and NX2 zone, specific intent of the NX2 zone is for residential multifamily. So, and here is the site, the NX2 on the corner and NX2 to the south of it. There's N2 to the east and corridor mixed use to the north and the west. Currently, there is a carport on the property that houses parking for the multifamily developed property to the south. The applicant has already began investigating alternative off-street parking, which may include a shared parking agreement when they get the site developed. They don't have a specific use decided yet for the property, but they felt that putting the commercial uses on that corner would be a better use of this particular property. The Zoning Commission is recommending approval. It does meet the growth policy and the infill development policy, essential investments in strong neighborhoods. The CMU1 zoning supports efficient use of existing infrastructure and neighborhood compatibility. It is an appropriate zone for this arterial corridor. I have a few photos for you. The subject property, you can see the carport. And then this is looking east on Grand. There's a casino and then a City Brew beyond the casino and liquor store. This is looking directly north to the subway across the street. And the Starbucks to the west across 9th. And then one more, another casino across the intersection. So it does fit with the neighborhood to have the corridor mixed use zoning district there. That concludes my presentation. I know the applicant is here. If you have any questions for them.
Very good. Questions for Karen, and then we'll ask the Youngerns if they have any presentation or if you've got any questions for them as well. Questions for Karen. Karen, right now there's sort of a carport there with multiple parking spots. Just out of curiosity, are those being used, and where will those people park if this property is developed?
They are being used by the apartment complex to the south, but like I said, he's already made some investigations and contacted engineering to see what other alternate parking he can create for that, including like a shared parking.
Very good. I don't see any other questions, so thank you. I don't know if the younger ones would like to address the council. You're welcome to do so.
There, I'm Dwayne Youngren and wife Tiffany. So yeah, any questions that we'll answer them. We are looking to do carports on 9th off the building. But yeah, we are looking to do carports on 9th off the building to make up. There's currently 6 stalls being used there.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions for Dwayne and Tiffany? Not seeing anything. All right, thanks very much. Okay, this is a public hearing, so if anybody would like to come forward and comment, this is your opportunity. We'll open the public hearing on item number 3, zone change 1066. Is there any public comment on item number 3? This is a public hearing. Please come forward if you would like to comment. Please come forward if you'd like to comment. This is your last chance. We'll close the public hearing if no one's coming forward. No one's standing up, so we will close the hearing and come back to council. Councilmember Boyette and Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance of zone change 1066 and adopt the findings of the 10 criteria as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Councilmember Kennedy, I'd recognize you and Councilmember Tidswell.
I'll second.
Okay. Either of you like to address your motion? Councilmember Boyette.
Mayor, I grew up 2 blocks from here. I went past this property thousands and thousands of times, and I've always wondered, why didn't we do something? What is just sitting there? I would just hope that the developer doesn't run off the people that are parked there and give them some adequate parking, because they do use those covered, but we need to do something with that piece of property for years and years.
Very good. Councilor Kennedy, anything?
Yes, Mayor. This is a piece of property I see every day, and hopefully with this and making a change, we can develop that property and go all the way over to 8th Avenue, because it's been sitting there for many, many years, and something needs to happen on that block. So I appreciate you coming forward and getting the ball rolling. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Tidswell, did you have anything? Very good. Further discussion now on the motion. Council members, any further discussion on the motion before we proceed to a vote? Okay, the motion is for approval of item 3, consistent with the staff recommendation. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. If opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes that item. Brings us to item number 4. Denise, would you please read item number 4?
Public hearing and resolution adopting FY26 and FY27 wastewater retail rates and fees. Staff recommends approval.
Very good. Do you have a presentation by Jennifer DeRay? Jennifer.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. This agenda item is for approval of the FY26 and FY27 wastewater retail rates only. So just a little reminder of where we're at. On May 27th, we had a public hearing for the water and wastewater rates. At that point, we left the hearing open so that we could later approve the wastewater retail rates and the wholesale rates. Since that time, we have had 2 meetings with P66 and Par Montana, and then also I have an open meeting, invitation with Lockwood. He has asked for information. We've sent that back, but it's in their court right now, and we have done everything on our part that we can do. But we anticipate meeting with them later. As far as the Par Montana and P66 meetings, I think they've gone well. We've made some progress. At the last meeting, Councilmember Aspenleiter, who had attended both, asked us to bring these rates to tonight's meeting for approval of the retail rates. So that is where we're at tonight. So what we're asking for, and I feel like I've given this presentation about 50 times this year, so it'll probably go quick. The fixed charges are 0% increase for FY26. This is per council's direction to go with a 0% rate increase for residential this year. And as a reminder, what we did to get here was to cut $1.3 million of wastewater extensions. And so then the FY27 increase for fixed charges is about 2%. On the volumetric side, it's again the 0% rate increase for FY26 and a 20 cent per kgal increase in FY27. And then when you put both rates together, our average residential customer uses 4,000 gallons of water during the winter, which is what their rate is based on for the rest of the year. So the average residential customer will increase by 95 cents in FY27. This is a 3% increase, and obviously $0 increase in FY26. This is where we compare to other cities. You can see that we're towards the bottom. Even the FY27 rate increase, if we inserted that into this chart, is below most of the other cities surveyed. And then if you do approve the retail rates tonight, these are the options. I'm sure there are other options, but kind of the main options here, if the wholesale rates do increase or decrease due to our negotiations and what we're doing there. So the first one is that we have an additional $700,000 in pipe extensions remaining in the budget that we could eliminate. We do have enough reserves that we could use reserves. Of course, that would require that we increased rates more in 28 and 29 to reestablish those reserves. Or we could come back in the spring with an additional rate study or rate study update and update the FY27 rates to increase more than they are now. Obviously, the reason that we do rate studies 2 years at a time is to decrease our costs, but it's still a doable option if council wants to go that route. And then we do have a Highway 3 sewer extension in the CIP that we could defer. And the last one, and I have it last because I really don't want to recommend this, but that's to reduce our sewer pipe replacements. And obviously that's counter to what we have been trying to do these last few years. So with that, I will turn it over to council for any questions.
Questions for Jennifer. Start down here, Councilmember Bernice.
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, can you go back to that last slide? I just want to ask you about the number 2 option, use reserves. How much reserves does the wastewater department have in the, because we get our fees monthly, right? So how much actually in reserves does the department keep?
So by administrative order, we keep 18%. We're required to keep 18% of reserves, just in case anything happens, that we have anything catastrophic, we have those reserves. We also kind of have a ongoing capital reserve depending on what our capital needs are for the next 5 years, just to make sure that we even out those rates. And so that's what this would come from, is that capital. And that's why I said we'd have to reestablish those in future years.
You have 2 different reserves, one for capital, one for just operational in case something happens. 18% is how many months of fees?
It's not even 2 months.
Okay.
So in water, we keep more reserves because it's very volatile as far as you can have $1 million of increases one summer and millions decrease the next. Rates for wastewater is very consistent, and we can estimate them really well. So that's why we have the lower 18% reserve.
But we've had some major breaks in our sewer at times where we've had to dip into reserves. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Or if we had a catastrophic event at the plant, this would help us fix that.
Okay. And then one more question I had is because I thought when we looked at this the last time, we were going to bring retail and wholesale rates back at the same time. Is there any reason why we can't just hold off approving these until both rates come at the same time? Because the proposal right now is no increase. And even if we did do an increase maybe later on, could we not increase a little bit on the retail rates and then they won't go into effect until, July or August or September?
Councilmember Neese, yes, that would be an option open to council, is to still not pass these rates. And I guess I would defer to Councilmember Aspenleiter. He had some specific reasons as to why he wanted them on tonight's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Neese, would you like to follow up on that suggestion and give the floor to Councilor Aspenleiter to comment?
That would be fine because I didn't expect to see these until the wholesale rates came at the same time.
Okay, well, it's a teed up for you, Councilor Aspenleiter, because it's all yours.
I'll use half the tea now and I'll wait for the other half after public comment. I asked for this to come back because what we've shown and what we've done through the budgeting process, through budget and finance, and as we've reviewed these rates, was shown that with keeping a 0% rate increase on residential customers, which is important to this council, coming off of what we've come off of, the instability of the tax issues and those types of things, it was important to do that. The way we did it, I think, is important to also remind everybody, including the public and the refineries, because we've talked about this twice now. We did it by eliminating the money that we were sticking into extensions. So we're not reducing our pipe replacement, which was also important and critical. We're just not stuffing $2 million over the next 2 years into potential extension costs. So we're changing nothing on what we do from a maintenance standpoint, and we're changing nothing that we're doing on an operation standpoint. The reason that I asked for this to come back was we need these rates to start going into effect so we don't have a retroactive situation or things like that on the residential side. The wholesale side is 3 customers, essentially. And we're working through that. At least I thought we were working through that. This is not going to impact what we do with the wholesale customers. In whatever we come to conclusion in the negotiations that I've been sitting in with the wholesale customers, if there's a reduction, there is still room in the extension fund to shrink that down and put $0 into the extension. I believe what we had done in the rate study still put $700,000, if I'm correct, into sewer extension. What we're working through with the refineries is not that. Or if it is, it's right there. So we're still not, even if there is some level of reduction on the wholesale rates, we're still not going to impact what we're doing with the capital improvements plan and with maintenance. And so that's why I asked staff to bring this back so that we could get it moving. It does not need to be tied to the wholesale, regardless of what the attorneys for the refineries want to tell you. We are not putting ourselves in a box in negotiating with the refineries, which is completely misleading coming from the refineries again. We have full capacity and ability to do this, as we've discussed clearly with the refineries in these meetings. And it's not going to impact what we're doing, and it does not hamstring us in our negotiations with the wholesale clients. So that's why I asked to get it here, so that we don't need more mess with our residential customers coming off of our billing situation. So I'd like us to move this forward. I'm confident, 100% confident that this has no impact on where we're going to land in coming to a conclusion with the wholesale clients. That's my perspective, having sat in those meetings over the last month.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Further discussion. There's no motion on the table. This was just, yeah, we'll have to move to the public hearing, but were there any other questions for staff before we open up for public hearing? Okay, we will open for public hearing. This is a public hearing, item number 4. Please come forward. You know the routine. We give 3 minutes, unlike the legislature, which stingily gives 2. Representative Mercer.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Bill Mercer. I'm here on behalf of Phillips 66. And we really did appreciate the council's decision to defer final action on all rates at the May 27th meeting. And we agree with what Mr. Ray said, that this created additional time for our client to confer with Public Works personnel and present additional information from Brown and Caldwell, which has been provided in the email from Ms. Marcus to you today. And we understand from that meeting earlier in the month of June that Public Works intends to react to the Brown and Caldwell recommendations next month. So probably the most important thing I'm going to try to say is we're in the middle of a dialogue with the city and with the Public Works Department. The conclusion of that dialogue should not be far off. Our understanding was that we would probably get a pass back next month. And so the idea that there would be undue delay in terms of you having final information from our client is just not far off, and I don't think would contribute significantly to any delay in you taking final action. We acknowledge that you have authority to determine retail rates for residential customers tonight, but deferring that decision has no obvious detriment as far as we can see. As I've said, it doesn't affect your impact, your ability to act after Public Works gets back to us, and therefore can fully inform you on its reaction to that Brown and Caldwell data. We think this increases the probability that when you ultimately determine all the rates, that they can be both proportional and reasonable while accounting for the city's needs. And finally, we believe that this opportunity to further confer advances the spirit of the contractual language that exists between Phillips 66 and the city, to make best efforts to work with staff before seeking to either mediate the dispute or to ask you on an appeal to hear the dispute. We believe this dialogue with staff is likely to lead to a better methodology in the long term with more predictable rates in the future. We think that it's most prudent to allow that to play out and for you to defer final action on this agenda item until we have concluded those conversations. So thank you for your consideration.
Good, thank you. Further comment on item number 4.
Hello, good evening. My name is Vicki Marcus. I'm an attorney representing Par Montana LLC here tonight. We too echo the comments you just heard from Mr. Mercer representing Phillips 66. Par Montana is also very grateful for the additional time and the process and the meetings and all of the effort that has gone into this on behalf of the city and Par and Phillips 66. We also agree with the city administrator's assessment earlier this evening when he said we hope to reach a successful conclusion. We think we're not far from that, and we look forward to continued dialogue. We did not expect to be here tonight. After we left the last council meeting, we understood that this would come back on the agenda in July and not again in June. We did not know that that had changed, so we are here tonight to reiterate the comments we made last time, to acknowledge the good process that's been made. And I want to point out one important thing in the Brown and Caldwell slides. You'll see that there is a slide that talks about recommendations based on how the inflow and infiltration is considered in the calculations. And That calculation, as I understand it, this is more technical than I completely grasp, but that calculation affects both the retail and the wholesale rates and how those are portrayed. So again, the rates should be set in a manner that provides a rate for each customer class that is proportional to that customer class's use of the system. Locking in the rates for one customer class limits or at least makes it more difficult to exercise at least one option to fund the revenue requirements for the entire system. So we again encourage the council to take an accurate, holistic approach to the rate increases, ensuring that all of the rates are proportional to the customer classes that are using the system. We respectfully ask that the council not adopt wastewater rates for any customer class until we can finish the good working process that we've been pursuing for the past month. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Other public comment on this item? Please come forward if you have any public comment on item number 4. Any public comment on item number 4 before we close the public hearing? No one is standing up, no one's coming forward, so we'll close the public hearing and come back to council. Council, how do you want to proceed? Councilor Aspenleiter?
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken testimony, I move to approve resolution adopting FY26 and FY27 wastewater retail rates and fees and continue public hearing to adopt wholesale wastewater rates at a future meeting as recommended by staff.
Motion made, seconded, Councilmember Gulick. Councilmember Aspenleiter, Councilmember Gulick, would either of you like to address your motion?
I'd love to, actually. And I gotta say, like, I'm incredibly frustrated with this today. We were making great progress, I thought. And I think there's been a hell of a willingness to try to figure this out. And to get another shot across the bow from your attorneys, when you clearly knew what we were gonna do because we talked about it last week when we met. I said, we're gonna bring the wastewater rates forward. And I looked at all three of you and we talked about that. In the same room, sitting in the same table. And I explained to you how this was not going to impact our negotiations, how we were going to modify if we needed to on the fly, if we had a revenue shortfall. We had that very specific and direct conversation. And now we're here with another crack from legal counsel about what we're doing and pretending like you didn't know. I'm also frustrated that the meeting we had last Tuesday where you presented your consultant's analysis, we got that information 60 minutes before we sat down to meet with them with zero time to review the information. We let them present that to the staff. Staff said, we'll take a look at it, and they are. So for you to then send that to council as if that is stated fact without our staff having had a chance to go through it and see how it fits within our system and work through that with you only muddies the water. And it only does it intentionally is the way that I take it. We are working through the process, and the approach that you have taken consistently is to muddy that process and to make this confusing. And it's also very ironic to me that the non-tax-paying entities to the city of Billings are somehow frustrated and concerned that we're setting a 0% rate increase for the residents of the city, most of them who work for you. This is frustrating beyond belief. I'm still committed to working towards a solution, but this approach is not helpful in making me want to be a great partner because it doesn't feel like a great partnership coming back. I'll support the motion. I hope the rest of council supports the motion, and I hope we can move these things along as we continue to try to find a workable solution that I'm sitting in and being a part of with the refineries. I'm confident that we'll get there. I'm confident that the solution that we get there with is going to end up in a reduction and a benefit to the refineries. Even beyond this cockamamie gamesmanship that we see. tonight. So I encourage us to move this forward and to advance the rates as I made in the motion.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Gulick. You had the second. Did you want to address the motion?
Just briefly, it does seem like the public comments didn't acknowledge, I guess, the points that were made by staff and Councilmember Aspenleiter in terms of we do have capacity and ability to address the situation if those fees, the way the wholesale fees are reduced. So again, none of those comments refuted that situation. So I don't see any issue with adopting the retail wastewater rates.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion. Councilmember Dees?
Mayor, I'd like to make a substitute motion to defer the adoption of the retail rates and keep the public comment period open until the wholesale rates are presented and approved.
Okay, so it's really just to the opposite of the proposal. We would not
If there's
approve
no
at this
second,
time.
then we don't have to discuss it.
Okay. Is there a second on the? Essentially, it would be just delaying the consideration of retail rates. Okay, I'll second it for discussion purposes at least. Councilmember Dees, do you want to address your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we heard from Jennifer tonight that that whether we adopt them or don't adopt them, as Councilmember Gulick said, if we stick with the $0 amount, we can stick with it now or we can stick with it later. But I think the idea then with these different options she presented is we will have to make a decision if when the wholesale rates come in a lower amount of where we're going to cut some funding. So the wholesale rates are going to impact in what public work has to do with solid waste. I think it's completely unfair for us to bring these back sooner than we had told the public we were going to bring them back. I think we mentioned that we are going to bring their wholesale and retail rates together because they indicated there may be some interaction. And as we see tonight, there is some interaction. If those wholesale rates come in lower, we are going to have to reduce pipeline extensions or reserves or one of the many things that she said they would have to be reduced. So I think that delaying this until wholesale rates are completed is not going to hurt because, as Jennifer said, if we keep the rates at zero, the public is still going to be charged zero. There's no impact on what our retail rates are going to be assessed in the month of July when we go forward. If these are not approved, it's still going to be the same rate. And so I think there's no harm in honoring in how we initially set this up. Last business session to defer this until the wholesale and retail rates came together. Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion. Councilmember Boyette, Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Aspenleiter.
So Jennifer, could you come back just for a minute? As been stated, it's zero. Do you think a month was going to make a difference one way or another to this whole thing question?
Mayor, Councilmember Boyette, I think that I would reflect that back to council. If council is going to change their mind in a month that they're not going to do a 0% rate increase, I think that's up to you. If you, and what I've heard so far is you want and have kind of promised that we will do a 0% residential rate increase this year. So if you're not going to change that, a month won't make a difference.
And just make a comment, Mayor. I would hope in the future that if a customer wants to come before the council, that they don't put a attorney in front of it. I wish that the PAR and Phillips 66 would have the courage to come up themselves and talk with us rather than send an attorney up. That's just my personal opinion. I'd rather deal with the person in charge, not someone else. But thank you very much, Jennifer.
Very good. Thank you very much. I recognize Councilmember Shaw and Councilmember Aspenleiter.
Thank you. I made
Owen.
the original motion a month ago to delay this, but now I'm at the place where it's been a month, and I really hear what Councilmember Aspenleiter is saying, having sat in those meetings, and I think, having heard the public comments, I think we're at a place where it would actually help the discussion to separate these two issues, that council has committed to this 0% rate increase. I don't see us changing our mind in a month. There doesn't seem to be any harm to me in just saying, okay, we're gonna move that through then tonight. And we're not gonna have that conversation. We're not going to offset commercial rates with increasing residential rates. That's been very clear. Whatever comes out of this conversation, and I hope it continues and is respectful and helpful and both parties come to an agreement, I think we've seen the 5 options that council will have to choose from if those rates get reduced. But it's not going to be changing what we would approve tonight. So I won't support the substitute motion. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Asplund, Councilor Owen?
I'm going to oppose the substitute motion as well. I don't think, as we talked about this, and even as I gave my comment a month ago when we postponed this, that those two things were intrinsically linked in that motion. If they could have came back together, great. But I think what we have found in going through this process is that they don't need to be. And in not needing to be, we don't need to delay the residential or the retail rates any longer. And it does nothing but add confusion and uncertainty the longer that we delay this. If you're going to propose increasing that rate from 0, then that's a part of the discussion. But I don't think that that's the case, and I don't think there's 6 people sitting up here that are going to do that. I think what has been presented shows that we have a multitude of options, and I'm confident, having sat in those meetings, that we're going to have plenty of options and we're not going to see any significant decrease to our capital improvements. That's what I've seen being engaged in this, and that's why I'm asking you to move the residential rates forward.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I wanted to kind of add my perspective here. I am in Ward 2, there are a tremendous number of Par Montana and P66 folks living, making their home there, raising their families there. I'm tremendously grateful for your presence in the county and for those who live in our ward. I am very hopeful we will come to a mutual agreement here, something that resolves this, something that that city can live with and that our partners can live with. But that answer doesn't lie in the residential rate. I'm not moving off of 0. And so I think for the clarity of negotiations, it's useful to move the residential rates forward and take that option off the table. I believe that there are options that remain. I think we spent a lot of time in Budget and Finance Committee understanding what 0% means for water or for wastewater main extensions. I'm confident that this is a responsible way to go, but I just really want to echo my gratitude for the partnership, for the ongoing conversations, and let's move this forward with a little bit more clarity. So I'm going to be supporting the original motion and not the substitute.
Very good. Further discussion on the substitute motion. Okay, I'll just comment. I'm learning a lot more about this process, and I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the hard work of staff, council members, Par 60 or Phillips 66 and Par Montana, and working through this. My challenge is that I'm still not hearing anybody contesting the fundamental point that these are relative rates, that they're coming out of the same pot. And at least technically, an increase to one or decrease to one impacts the other one. I think that appears to still be fundamentally the case. I appreciate the thought that has gone into looking at ways to potentially reduce wholesale rates, because the reduction in the extensions only benefited retail by keeping them at 0 at this point. So maybe wholesale could get any of those, the benefit of those future reductions, but that's a lot of ifs. And I'm gonna support the substitute motion only because when I don't fully understand something, I tend to err on the status quo preservation side, and but I think this will pass anyway, and I appreciate and I understand the thinking behind it. I also support keeping retail at 0 if at all possible. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to a vote on the substitute motion. Okay, the substitute motion made by Councilmember Neese, hopefully that is clear to anybody. Does not need to be further restated. No one is asking for a restatement, so on the assumption that's the case, if in favor of the substitute motion made by Councilmember Neese, please say aye. Aye. Voting in favor, Councilmembers Neese and myself. If in opposition, please say nay. All other council members voting nay, so the substitute motion fails, brings us back to the original motion in favor of the recommendation made by, original motion made by Councilmember Aspen-Leiter and Councilmember Gulick. Discussion now on that motion. Any further discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on that. The original motion, if in favor of the original motion, please say aye. If opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Same vote, Councilmembers Neese, Cole voting in opposition, all other council members voting in favor of the original motion. Original motion passes. Thank you very much for your discussion and for the public's input and staff's hard work. To be continued, discussions are still ongoing, and appreciate everybody's efforts in that direction. That concludes item 4, brings us to item number 5. Denise, would you read item number 5?
This will be a joint public hearing and resolutions allocating FY26 assessments for the following. A is Tourism Business Improvement District, and B is the Business Improvement District 1.
Very good. We will, when we get to this point, have a joint public hearing on both these items, but our presentation is by Finance Director Andy Zeller. Andy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation. These both the TBID and DBID presented to you their annual budget and work plan. This would set the assessments accordingly for those two entities. And as a reminder, these are assessed on property taxes to the members in the district and then pass through the city, 100% pass through the city. So we actually don't really have much to do with it other than to see that the public hearing occurs and they arrive on the tax bills and then eventually to those entities. So I know representatives from both the TBID and DBID are here if you have questions specific to that. That's all I have.
Questions for Andy, and then I'll ask representatives of the BID and the TBID if they've got anything they want to say. Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. Andy, do you know if this is an increase, the $4 per room night?
I believe it's flat, but I think Allie can confirm that.
I'll ask her when she comes up. Thank you.
Okay. We've got representatives from the TBID and the BID. Would you guys come forward in case we have any questions for you? And if you've got any comments for us, please let us know.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Neese, I believe your question is if this is for the increased TBID assessment to $4 per occupied room night, and yes, it is.
It is increasing from what?
From $2 to $4.
And that extra $2 is to be used for?
$1 of that is being allocated specifically to those sports facilities, so the Signal Peak Ice Arena and Amen Sport Court Recreation Facility. And then the other $1 is going towards increased efforts, things like staff to sell those sports facilities, but also just for us to stay competitive as a destination when it comes to attracting meetings, group tours, marketing, and the work that we do day in and day out.
Okay, and that $1 between the two sports facilities, that's being split between them, or is that just as needed?
Yeah, so as a reminder in our work plan, our board has committed to $1 million over the next 3 years to help offset operating costs for the Signal Peak Ice Arena. And they have committed $500,000 over the next 3 years as well, spread over the next 3 fiscal years for the Sport Court Recreation Center. And that is based on the numbers that both of those entities provided us for support for operations costs. So as of right now, it's for 3 years. Obviously, it's all our hopes that those succeed and no longer need the support, but should they, that door will still remain open. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for Allie or for the downtown BID? Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. The downtown BID did not have any sort of comment or presentation. They're shaking their heads, so they're happy if you're happy. Okay, this is a joint public hearing, so we'll open this up for the public. If anybody would like to comment on items 5A or 5B, the assessments for the Tourism Business Improvement District and the assessment proposed for the Business Improvement District 1, this is your chance to do so. Please come forward. Is there any public comment on item 5A or 5B? Any public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public hearing on item 5A and 5B. Come back to council. We need to deal with these separately. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, excuse me, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve the resolution setting FY26 Tourism Business Improvement District assessments as recommended by staff.
Very good. Second by Councilmember Tidswell. Councilmember Boyette or Tidswell, do you want to address your motion? Nope. Further discussion now on the motion. On item 5A, any further discussion by the council before we proceed to a vote? Okay, we'll move to the vote. The motion is for approval of item 5A, consistent with the recommendation. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 5B, is there a motion? Councilmember Gulick.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution setting fiscal year 26 Business Improvement District 1 assessments as recommended by staff.
Very good. Is there a second? Councilmember Shaw. Councilmember Gulick, Councilmember Shaw, will either of you like to address your motion?
Get it done.
Get her done. Okay. That's succinct. Any other discussion on the motion to approve item 5B? Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I just encourage, as I've had before, to really have the bid work on the graffiti and expand that program to a little bit higher and alleys as well. So I hope to see that come so we can clean up, the entire city. So thank you, or downtown area. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion? My only comment is the downtown bid is such a good idea that I would love to see it replicated on some of our other legacy arterial streets, in particular Main in the Heights and Central and Broadwater by those business owners. For a very modest sum, you can get a big bang for the buck in pooling a few dollars together and brightening up the neighborhood, developing common plans. But that's obviously off topic to this, so I'll stop. Any other discussion on item 5B? Okay, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Concludes item 5, brings us to item 6. Denise, would you please read item number 6?
Public hearing and resolution approving and adopting FY25 budget amendments. Staff recommends approval.
Tonight we do have a presentation by our finance director, Andy Zeller. Andy.
Yes, you do have a presentation for this one, though brief. I think the staff memo probably covered these individual amendments in more detail. So I've got a very summarized presentation for you. The staff recommendation here, obviously this is a public hearing, and then recommend that you adopt the FY25 budget amendments. Just for your clarity as well as the public, FY25 is the fiscal year we are currently in. These are year-end budget amendments. These amendments were reviewed at the June 11th Budget and Finance Committee meeting. They were unanimously recommended for approval. They're here before you this evening, and by adopting these, you'll ensure that our final fiscal year 25 year-end budget is compliant with state law, which is that we have authority to spend these funds. Up here, just a summarized list of each fund, the purpose of the expenditure and the amount. The major one there being the South TIF Fund. This would add $20 million to the FY25 budget for the contract you just approved a few minutes ago. And then as part of the FY26 budget, you'll see staff recommending removing that. It's just a timing thing since that project got going quicker than we had anticipated. a few other things there, some furniture, printers, and a couple other items. I think street and traffic, I'd note the Teamster COLA and the significant response to snow this year that we had. I will point out there are sufficient funds. That's actually probably this next one. Okay, I just spoke about this one. This project would be funded with debt. We are in the process of issuing debt for this project. Right now, we're scheduled to issue the debt on July 1st. We should have funds in July to reimburse the city for payments that it's making currently on this contract, as well as be prepared for the remaining expenditures of that contract. All other funds, this is what I was going to mention earlier, all other funds, there are sufficient fund balances or, in some cases, new revenues to cover those purchases. There is no shortfall anticipated. And I think in all cases, except for the South TIF Fund, the FY26 budget assumed these expenditures were happening in that estimated column. So when we're looking at fund balance, many of these were already estimated in there. So nothing to be concerned about there. And again, just as a reminder, this is a public hearing and staff recommends approval.
Thank you very much, Andy. Questions for Andy? Any questions for Andy? Okay, I don't see any. We'll open it up for public hearing then. This is a public hearing on item number 6, our proposed fiscal year 25, so the current year budget amendments. If anybody would like to comment, please come to the podium. Any public comment on item number 6? Any public comment on item number 6? Before we close the public hearing on item number 6. No one's coming forward. We'll close the public hearing. Back to council. Councilmember Kennedy. And Councilmember Kennedy, I apologize. Before we get your motion, Councilmember Neese, we had some dialogue by email about the possibility of separating one of these items, and my conclusion is by Councilmember Neese and Gina thought that could be done by any council member as a matter of right. So I just, Councilmember Neese, before you make the motion, I just want to see whether you want to exercise that.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I would like to have a separate vote on Fund 1990 TIF. And so if you want to make a separate motion, not including that initially, I'm separating that for voting in opposition, consistent the way I voted against the rec center right now.
Okay, so Councilmember Kennedy, I'm going to turn it to you. You can either address that item, the TIF, or all of the others, but Councilmember Neese would like to separate that one item out, just FYI.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve resolution approving and adopting resolution for fiscal year 25 budget amendments as recommended by staff, excluding item
1990, Fund 1990 South TIF, $20,000 for $20 million.
South TIF.
Okay, Councilmember Boyette, second. Councilmember Kennedy or Boyette or both, would you like to address your motion? No. Okay, rest of the council, would you like to speak to the motion? Okay, we'll have a move to a vote. The motion is for approval of all these items with the exception of the first one, Fund 1990 South TIF, that's been separated. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us though then to that separated item. Councilmember Neese, did you want to make a motion on that or just have questions or otherwise start our discussion?
No, I'll allow someone else to make a motion.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Aspenleiter.
Having conducted a public hearing, consider written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve resolution adopting FY25 budget Amendment 1990 as recommended by staff.
Councilmember Kennedy indicates a second. Now, would either of you like to address your motion? No and no. Councilmember Denise.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'm just separating this out because I believe that we have a rec center we're building and we don't know management, who's going to run it, what the cost to the city or the taxpayers are going to be. And I think that really needed to be done prior to that. We are working on it now, and I hope that we have that resolution prior to this as being operating. But I am concerned that we started this a little soon. So I will oppose this at this time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Motion is for approval of that individual item in our fiscal year 25 budget amendment. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay.
Nay.
Councilmember Neese votes in opposition. All other council members vote in favor. Motion passes. That concludes item 6, brings us to item number 7. Denise, would you read item number 7?
Public hearing and resolution approving and adopting the FY26 preliminary budget. Staff recommends approval.
Andy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have another presentation for you. Okay. Where's it going to go? There we go. All right. So I have before you the FY26 preliminary budget. This is slightly modified from years past, where this year the plan, as you should be aware, we're asking you to consider adopting a preliminary budget this evening that would establish some legal spending authority. We will have expenses next week and the following months, and then in August, you'll have before you an opportunity again to really adopt the final budget. You could make amendments at that point as well. But at this point, staff does not anticipate bringing any amendments for you to consider at that, but you obviously would have that opportunity. The budget before you has some changes from what has been presented. I will detail them in the coming slides, but it is still this is $20 million less than what was before you earlier this year. That's the debt financing for the South TIF project. But total funding for FY26 at $436 million. That includes all taxes, fees, assessments, and anticipated debt proceeds, which largely consist of the West End Reservoir at this point. Expenses at $417 million. This is less, again, than what was presented, largely relating to the movement of the rec center. Here are the dollars by category corresponding with the previous slides. You see the bulk of the $417 million, I just point out, is personnel and operations. This is maybe one of the few years where capital outlay is not the large individual leader, but I think we've got big projects we're in the middle of, and that's probably part of it. So the adjustments that are already included in the resolution before you. So I'm not asking you to make any amendments to bring these into the budget. These are already there. So it's removing the $20 million, both the revenue and expense for the Amen Rec Center, removing the $1,500 out of mayor and council for the mayor's car allowance. All other car allowances had already been removed. This one was still remaining and has been recommended to be removed. We had identified that we duplicated the DUI grant for PD, both the revenue and the expense. So we're asking to remove the duplicated one because we won't be getting it, nor will we be spending that. And then you heard from the building department on the recommendation to add funds for a project coordinator position, and the proposed budget or the preliminary budget in front of you has those in there as well. Those would be funded from building reserves and building fees. So the total reduction here of just a little bit over $20 million from what we had been working through over the past month. So the total budget includes 11 FTE. Public Works had also mentioned they were seeking to add the mechanic position. We didn't add funds for that because they were going to be offset by a reduction in contracted services that they're paying for those that mechanic work currently. So while the staff is in there, there were no added funds for solid waste. Just want to talk briefly about the amendment or the adoption process here. Again, asking that you establish or approve the resolution tonight. This would establish spending authority. We'll have cost of living adjustments, both negotiated as well as a recommendation for non-bargaining that would go into effect on July 1st. There'll be projects that are ongoing in some stage of planning, beginning, and those will be coming before you like normal contracts. So this would allow all of that to continue without any kind of concern that funding may not be available. And then on August 25th, we will both set the mill levies because we will have certified value from the state of Montana at that point, as well as I put confirmed preliminary budget, but adopt the final budget. You will have an opportunity then to amend that budget as well at that meeting. When going over this with the Budget and Finance Committee, I expressed, I don't know if it's concern, just I want to be very clear that if there is an intention to make a significant budget adjustment in August, it would be helpful that we know that today. We don't want to begin doing things next month that, are beginning projects or whatever that we find out in August, well, that project isn't going to happen now or something. Not that it's impossible, but we may be expending some funds that towards a project that may not ultimately get funded. So it would be good to know that earlier. There were 4 council amendments discussed at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. None of these are included in the resolution before you. This is consistent with how we've done it in the past. These were all, the majority of Budget and Finance voted to approve these. I don't think any of them were unanimous. I had the vote count in the staff memo for your reference. And so I'll leave it to the council members to bring them up. I believe that even with all of these changes, there would be no net overall change in the expenditure because all of these have identified another funding source or specific account to offset. This one here is the same slide you've seen a few times. Just want to point it out again with the state changes, in property taxes. The value of a mill is dropping 16%. They've told the city of Billings that you will levy mills such that you generate the same revenue in 26 as you did in 25. Right now, our estimation is that's almost 40 mills more, though that will be a property tax decrease for the median residential home. The slide in front of you just represents mills. Here again, representing mills. And I think at the August Budget and Finance Committee, we're going to discuss the kind of 2 options that have been considered with respect to how we want to levy those mills in that resolution. I think these were largely the 2 options there. Do we call out the state mandated mills separately or, roll them into the existing mills, but not something that needs to be determined tonight. Probably what people actually care about is what is the impact to the median home, and that the budget before you would result in a reduction of $205 for the median home in Billings. That assumes both the increase in the number of mills as well as an increase in the value of the median home from a little over $300,000 to $350,000. We don't know what the median home is or will be in August. I will know that number, but at this point, we're guessing it's pretty close to 350. So should see, and this is just the Billings portion of their property tax bill. There will more than likely be reductions in the county and school district portion as well, and state. This slide here represents all of the kind of typical property taxes and utility bills that the median home has in Billings. The overall decrease in taxes of $205 and an overall monthly utility bill increase of $2, and that is only in the storm sewer, consistent with rates you have approved. So what I'm recommending just for your guys' reference tonight, obviously discussion, question and answers, hold a public hearing. As far as adoption and amendments go, the recommendation is that you make a motion to adopt the preliminary staff memo, then consider amendments each on their own, and then finally, after that's completed, vote to approve the amended preliminary staff budget, and that will be what is brought back in August. Mayor and council.
Very good. Questions for Andy? And I guess my concern a little bit is for just members of the public who might be here with us. We have in front of us the 4 budget amendments that were previously discussed by the budget committee. But the public may have seen those because I think those were in the packet, but they may not have. And then we recently got 3 from Councilmember Owen on Friday as well. I'm just wondering if you could very briefly, the authors of those need to be able to address them, but before we open up for public hearing, maybe it would be helpful that you could just give the public a little bit of a heads up of what might be coming in case they wanted to make any comments on those topics.
Sure. And I'm going to prep so we can pull them up here for review. I apologize, I wasn't prepared for that. I did have a slide on the 4 council member, oh, that's the wrong presentation. On the 4 council member ones that were considered at Budget and Finance. I'll pull that up, and I'll do my best to give a Reader's Digest version, but apologize to both Councilmember Rupsis and Kennedy if I butcher it, but I'm sure they'll let me know. Share and okay. Hopefully that will work there. So Rupsis 1 was to end the participation in the National League of Cities and Towns. That's about $10,000. I think it's 10,000 and some change, and use that funding to dedicate it towards an understanding of developing a housing program in Billings, and not establishing a housing program, but for understanding how a program may or may not work in Billings. Obviously, the details I'll leave to Councilmember Rupsis. The other one was to take $5,000 from the council contingency line item, which is included in mayor and council, and dedicate it for city boards and commissions. Not an overall increase, but to take, I think we have $25,000 in council contingency. This would dedicate 5,000 of that for this specific purpose. There would be then 20,000 remaining for council contingency for the year. Kennedy 1 would reduce the police department overtime by 500,000, and then increase the police salaries line item by 500,000. If you recall, we have in the budget currently an estimated vacancy savings of about 500,000 for police salaries. So not a net increase, but it is certainly shifting it from one area to another. And then Kennedy, I have that mislabeled. Kennedy 2 is $0 for car allowances. The current budget before you does not have car allowances included for anyone except for the city administrator, and his is in the contract. But there was a desire to make certain that that was included in there as well. Councilmember Owen did submit 3 over the weekend. I have them, and it's not going to share that. I do have them, and I'm able to pull them up. Hers were largely, well, exclusively amendments to the resolution language itself, not to the overall dollars and allocation of budget funds. And would you like me to pull those up, Mayor, or what would you prefer?
Maybe very briefly, again, we'll leave it to Councilmember Rowan to go through the detail, but just for the purpose if there was
Okay.
anybody in the public
absolutely
who wanted to have an opportunity
Let's
to comment.
just, how do I share the entire screen? There we go. Okay. You're going to get some duplicate stuff. 1, 2, 3. All right. So ON1 was to add some language in section 3 of the resolution. This would, in my opinion, dictates some more reporting to the Budget and Finance Committee. This was after a discussion her and I had about the city administrator's ability to make budgetary transfers within a fund or a department. And I had expressed some concerns that administratively that I have a genuine concern that that'd be very challenging to be out ahead of. But I have no concern, obviously, reporting to you guys, hey, here's what's happened, here's where we're at. So this would add some language to do some reviews at the Budget and Finance Committee level of those transfers that occur, as well as some monthly reporting at a more detailed level to Budget and Finance. ON2. It's my this is this all new section here? Okay, yeah. So all new language, adding a section 6 to direct the zero-based budgeting exercise in preparation for the FY27 budget. I think that I'll leave it at that. And ON3. There's a section at the very bottom of the resolution. There's a portion of state law that requires, I want to say last legislative session, 23, I think the legislature put in some language that said, hey, when you're adopting a budget that's assuming a change in mills, you need to write what the impact, the tax impact is on a $100,000, $300,000, and $600,000 home. That language was already in there. It is a little peculiar because the taxable value of that home is dropping relative to last year. And so I think adding some clarity there that, you know, the taxes are decreasing even though the mills are going up. And she's suggesting adding language specifically relating to the 2 bills this year that passed that are both requiring the increased mills as well as kind of explaining the change in taxable value.
Okay, very good. Andy, thank you for that. Again, none of those amendments are on our table yet. There haven't been any motions made to those to effectuate any of them yet. Very good. Any questions for Andy before we open up for public hearing? Okay, don't see any. So thank you, Andy. This is a public hearing for adoption of proposed adoption of our preliminary budget. If you would like to comment,
I'm sorry,
Councilmember Neese.
I still had questions for Andy.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're not off the hook, Andy. Councilmember Neese.
Good.
Andy, you and I talked about this briefly in an email, but I wanted to point out that I would like to make some minor changes to the exhibit. Is where when some of the headings are not matching what was in the budget book. For instance, you've got the city administrator having 1.3 million. It's a city administration department. Their city attorney is the legal department. And then when we go down to Park District 1 of $10.2 million, that actually is the Park and Recs Department budget item fund. And so I'm going to recommend that we make those changes also to mirror what the budget book is saying and more clearly indicate that that's the Park and Recs Department. We, as a council, got rid of the Park District 1 amount some time ago. No
objection from me. I did pull up the resolution in front of you. This is Exhibit A. just so everybody's on the same page here, we have city administrator under the general fund, and the correction would be to city administration, and then city attorney changed to the legal department, and then down under special revenue funds, it's at the nearly at the bottom of page 2. We have the relic from years past of Park District 1. I apologize, that was not corrected. I think we referred to it as the PRPL Operations Fund, or I'll match them up, but it's not Park District 1.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Andy? Okay, so now you're done, Andy, at least for now.
All right.
This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on item number 7, proposed fiscal year 26 preliminary budget, please come forward. Just ask to keep your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name and, if you're comfortable, your address, or at least what ward you're in. Any public comment on item number 7? This is a public hearing. Your comments are welcome. Any public comment? No one's standing up. No one's coming forward. We'll close the public hearing. And then back to council. Council, just a reminder, the request from staff, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, was that there be a motion for approval of the staff proposal, but then we'll entertain specific budget amendments from there. So that sounds like a good proposal, a good plan. Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. I'll make a motion, the baseline motion. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution approving and adopting the FY26 preliminary budget as recommended by staff.
Very good. Is there a second? Councilmember Gulick? Okay. Do either of you want to speak to your motion? Answer is no.
Mayor, just a quick question. For
Sure, Councilmember Neese?
Would that include the minor corrections to the headings?
Sure. Yeah. Andy said that's no problem, so I'd say include him.
Thank you for that clarification. Both Councilmember Shaw and Councilmember Gulick are fine with that clarification. Okay, Council, that's the underlying motion. Feel free to now discuss the underlying motion or bring amendments. Councilmember Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to amend the underlying motion to approve my Ripsis number 1 amendment, which would allocate up to $10,000 to study the design of a housing program here in Billings. If there's a second, then I'll certainly go into more explanation.
Very good. Is there a second? Councilmember Gulick? Very good. Councilmember, back to you, Councilmember Ripsis, to address your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. This is something that I've been kind of asking about for several years now. The idea that we as a city do not have any kind of sustainable participation in housing programs here in Billings other than the administration of the federal CDBG and home funds. I think that's simply inadequate. I think there are lots of areas from working with our development community to streamline housing regulations to the other extreme of homelessness issues and having ongoing participation in the continuum of care. So based on Wyatt's recommendation this year, we're asking to allocate a small amount of money from the council contingency fund to deal with any costs that might go into essentially a council-led initiative to study what that program might look like as we go into the next budgeting season next year. And of course, some of you will be a part of that, I won't. But yes, it should be council-led. Planning certainly has enough on their plate, so I would expect that we'll work together and I might participate this, might ask for some other volunteers here. I'd prefer to not spend any of this $10,000. I am just putting a small allocation there based on Director Friday's recommendation that if there are things that we need to purchase or to travel to look, get eyes on a particular program that is working very well, that we would have some money there available. Otherwise, I think pretty much all of this could be done remotely with local research and virtual meetings. But as Director Zeller mentioned, we will be terminating the membership in the National League of Cities and Towns, which happens to be about the same amount of money as this $10,000 that we're asking for. So a slight shift into to increase the council contingency fund and use those dollars out of that. So ask for your support on this. We did get a 4-to-1 support in the council budget committee, so hopefully we're able to do this tonight. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Gulick, did you want to address your motion or second?
Yes, just to add a little bit more, we've had some policy at the state level in the last 2 sessions that have made some changes in zoning that I think have generally been good for addressing housing affordability in the state. Are there more things that we could be doing locally? So I'm not even just thinking in terms of housing programs, but policy as well. And I think something like this could help inform that. As the chamber person Dan Brooks has pointed out, cities that have accessory dwelling units widely adopted oftentimes have a program where there are a few models, designs that can be expedited through the permitting process. Perhaps something like this could be funded through an initiative like this. So for all those reasons, I support this amendment.
Very good. Further discussion now on the motion. Councilmember Shaw.
I just have a question about the National League of Cities and Towns. What do we use that membership for right now? Has anyone gone to a national conference? I haven't, but what else goes into that, just so I know? I think this is well worth it, but I just want to make sure we're not giving up anything.
Yeah, no, haven't. I've attended, and their president has come to our conference in the past. Council members, oftentimes the mayor, have been involved at the national level. That's always an option for members of the council. I have not. We get lots of emails for sure, but there's limited direct benefit. I'm a little concerned about the message it sends to the national organization, however, and we may get some blowback from the Montana League. They might be concerned because they do have a tremendous amount of connection to the National League. So that's our real connection, is indirectly through the Montana League and their staff who do go to those conferences and get resources from them. And there's a very good relationship between the Montana League and the National League. Further discussion on the motion. Councilmember Braun.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to I was the no vote in Budget and Finance, so I just wanted to put my concerns on the record. I am not interested in seeing the city of Billings develop a housing department at this time, and I think that's the direction we're heading here. I think we have tremendous capacity both in the community and with the housing authority that we're not using. So I opposed the housing coordinator last year. I'm going to oppose this tonight. But I do want to be clear, I very much support the offset and think that the continuing the National League of Cities, that $10,000 is unnecessary. So I assume this will pass. If it doesn't, I absolutely think we should strike that $10,000 anyhow.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion. Councilmember Denise?
Mayor, I also will not support the motion. I also believe that we have current functions of housing in our community that work hard to make affordable housing, have done many strides to bring that to us. I don't think the city needs to consider looking into replicating something others are doing. I think we can encourage them through our own policies. These are some things that Councilmember Aspenleiter has talked about in the past about bringing to us without having to go through something like this. I think we work on those internal policies ourselves as council and work with staff to do that. We don't need to set aside another $10,000 to do that. But I do agree, if this does fail, I think we should make a motion to cancel membership and move that $10,000 into another fund like police or fire. Thank you. Public safety.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion before we proceed to a vote? Okay. The motion is for approval. Item proposed budget amendment, so-called RUPSIS 1. If the motion is clear, we'll just do a voice vote. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay.
Nay.
So let's do a hand vote. If in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor, council members Shaw, Gulick, Cole, Kennedy, Aspenleiter, and Nice. If, and I'm sorry, don't ask me why I made that connection. If voting in opposition, please raise your hand. Voting in opposition, council members Nice, Owen, Rogers, Tidswell, and Boyette. So that passed 6-5, I believe, right? Okay. All right. Next. Further discussion, questions, staff, motions. Councilmember Ripsis.
Well, Mayor, if you don't mind, I'll introduce my second amendment. A very small allocation of up to $5,000 from the council contingency fund. We've had some requests from boards and commissions to have some small amount of money available to them to help in their efforts engaging in the community. This could be to purchase a table, fees for an event, so they could have a table there. It could be printing some pamphlets or supplies to help get the word out that they even exist, and they have a function within the community, and how to reach and contact them and tap into them. You know, any kind of things like that. Again, this got a 4-to-1 vote in the Budget and Finance Committee based on Councilmember Owen's recommendation that the access to these funds be subject to the board and commission coming to council and giving a presentation and presenting an annual plan that includes a budget for how they would propose to use those funds. So again, it's an allocation of up to $5,000 of money that's already been allocated to City Council. And if it's not used by the boards and commissions, it would stay in the council contingency funds for other opportunities. Thank you. So I would move for approval of Rupsis Amendment 2.
Very good. Second by Councilmember Boyette. You've already addressed your motion, I'd say. So Councilmember Boyette, anything? Okay, further discussion then on that motion, Councilmember Gillick.
We briefly discussed also in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting that we'd really like to be able to empower, I guess, raise up the capacity of our boards and commissions so that they are feel like they have the resources needed, but can actually do a greater role in advising council. This seemed to be maybe one step we can take. It's a minor one, but to help change that dynamic, to help bring them up as well. So supporting this motion.
Very good. Any further discussion, Councilmember Nice?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will oppose this motion. I think there's there could be some value to having something like this, but there are a lot of boards and commissions that currently exist and within the departments, and those departments do fund those boards and commissions. So we're probably going to see a shift of funding from the departments funding their boards and commissions to being moved over to this fund. This lacks a lot of guidance in this. I know that it was mentioned they need to come to the council for their budget in order to get that, but there's no guidance as far as this policy and how it's going to be created, who's going to run it, who's going to operate it, to make sure these funds don't happen. If the fund is a $5,000, one board or commission can come and say they're going to set up doing an event in the community and take up that $5,000 right away or half of it, and it's all spent. And the other boards and commissions have no ability to use any of the funds for later. So I think this may be an idea that could be created in the future. But again, I think there's not enough policy guiding this to make sure that certain funds, for instance, in the task force, they all have an allotment and it's kind of divided amongst and that. And so they all know that they can go to and get a certain amount of fund. If they don't use it, it kind of goes into the pool, then it's left over. Those are the kind of things I think that this needs to be a little bit more refined, and maybe it can come back at the August budget amendments to then determine, with a little more clarity and policy on how this should be administered. So I will not support it this time.
Okay, further discussion on the motion. And the motion is for approval, Rupsis 2. Any further discussion before we proceed to vote? Not seeing any. Again, the motion is for approval of Rupsis 2. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay.
Nay.
Voting in opposition, Councilmember Nice alone, I believe. So That motion passes 10-1. Councilmember, we'll move on. Councilmember Kennedy, you also had a couple. Should we turn this to you?
Thank you, Mayor. Item Kennedy 1 is this amendment would eliminate the vacancy savings that were budgeted for police salaries at $500,000 and would be offset by an equal reduction in the police overtime. This came up because as we were looking at reductions in the budget, and it was discussed over many, many months with legislation, it was also stated that we would, without the additional dollars, we would be eliminating police positions. At this time, in the budget, it said our offset would be that vacancy savings from the police department. The police department is at 162 right now, officers. We would like it to be up to 177. And what this amendment does is it would eliminate use of the vacancy savings and make sure it's there so we can actually get up to 177. I know it's been stated over and over again in the police budget, we haven't got there, but I want to make sure the dollars are there. And so I would make a motion to approve Kennedy 1, and this would just be making sure that that $500,000 is there to fund the full amount for all of the police officers.
Second.
At 177.
I heard second by Councilmember Rogers. So, Councilmember Kennedy, you've already addressed your motion, I'm assuming. Councilmember Rogers, did you want to say anything before we open it up for further discussion?
Briefly. I mean, I know the concern is that they are in the process of hiring, but I think it's very important that we make that very obvious to the public and the police department that the police have our full support and they have that money available the second they need it.
Very good. Further discussion now on the motion. Councilmember Shaw and Councilmember Nish.
Thank you. Andy, can you help us with this one a little bit? I'm really concerned about the police overtime budget. It tends to go over what it's been budgeted for. And so a $500,000 reduction doesn't seem very, what are you thinking?
So this was discussed quite a bit at the committee. I think that's part of what those monthly reports will do, help track that. And then if, more than likely when the time comes, hopefully later in the year, that it's determined, okay, we're on track to be under budget in salaries, but over in overtime, there may be a decision at that point to move some back. That's my understanding of what was talked about at the committee level, but that would happen at a future date.
Couldn't we get into the situation where we've moved this money, they've continued to hire at a certain rate, but overtime still explodes, and we end up with a budget amendment of a couple $2 million to address that? That's my concern.
Yeah, I don't think we'd be in a position where we're going to have a couple $1 million. July 1st is a week from now. And so they won't have 177 officers a week from now, but the goal is that they're getting closer to that throughout the year. So, I mean, there will be some vacancy savings, even if they, hired them all a month from now. But I think there won't, I think it's unrealistic that we'll need an overall budget increase for the police department as a function of this.
Okay, that's basically my question. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Nice, Councilmember Aspenleiter.
Thank you, Mayor. These are along the same lines that Councilmember Shaw was asking, because I think the 500,000, if I look at the exhibit, is what we're approving tonight. What department or what line is that in?
So it would be in the police department under, I guess I can open it up, under public safety fund. It would be a net zero. It'd be an increase and a net decrease.
And so those amounts actually can be approved by the city administrator to move it from overtime or from salary to overtime. Is that correct?
Presently, yes.
Okay. And so, like, and I think you stated, really the importance of this is so that these monthly meetings that you're going to have for the budget committee, this is really more of a guidance for them to help ensure that police are being hired and overtime is being managed.
That is my understanding.
And also to help the city administrator see that as well.
Yep.
But he has the authority. We won't see any budget amendments
No.
regardless of this.
Correct.
Okay.
You would not see budget amendments before council. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Raschleiter?
Thanks. And Andy, you can kick this over to Chris if you want, but part of the process of doing this, we also talked about setting some parameters on overtime for both fire and for police, and setting a check-in period of, if you get to 2/3 of your budget and you are more or under 2/3 of the calendar year or the fiscal year, then you're coming back to council and reporting. Are we still doing that? Is that an administrative process that we're putting in place? What are the assurances that we're actually going to follow that process?
So the monthly reporting to budget and finance, I'm sure we'll tweak it some, but as I've set it up right now, would show, percentage of a year that we're at. So, 12% of the year done, and where are we at on overtime? Where are we at on salaries, both dollars and percentages? So that's going to happen monthly at those meetings. I mean, you'll have that metric as part of that reporting.
And second is just a comment. I mean, coming off of some discussions with Councilman Rupsis about, how we fundamentally do this and how we do this in the future as it relates to vacancy savings and savings overall in both fire and police and the two departments that we try to overhire when we can overhire. Councilman Rupsis had I think a good thought. I don't know how to implement it or how we would talk about it, but I think it's worth talking about in the future. If we get to a point where we're fully staffed and we're still hiring to make sure that we're accounting for retirements and things like and attrition in those two departments, it'd be a valid conversation, I think, for us to have as we go into the next budget cycle about setting aside staff reserve funds in both police and fire, so that there is funds there to cover over hiring if we can ever get to that point. I hope to God we can at some point in the near future, but instead of rolling those funds back into the general fund and then allocating it out or putting it back into the reserves, into the general fund reserves, taking a look at creating reserve accounts to allow for overhiring in both police and fire. I don't think that necessarily needs to go in this amendment, but it's something that I thought was a really good idea by Councilman Rupsis and something that I'd be curious to look at as we head through this calendar year or this fiscal year and into the next budget cycle to see what our track record could or would be in creating something like that to move it forward.
Chris wanted to comment on that, so why don't we do that?
Yeah, council member, Aspenlighter, mayor, and council. So no disagreement there on the concept. The only piece I would add to it is that on the fire side, not on the police side, but on the fire side, there's been a desire over the last several years to figure out how to get more money into the capital improvement needs of the stations themselves. And the hope, honestly, for me was that again, the goal was never to have vacancy savings, but if there is vacancy savings, to use it for those one-time capital expenses. And unfortunately, we've not been successful at pulling that off on the fire side either. And I would just keep that on the table as to a couple of issues that face us, challenges that are in the 6 figures category and 7-figure category for future investments. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to respond also to Councilmember Aspenlighter's questions. I think Andy inferred it, that the amendments that I'm offering later would ensure we'd have line of sight to those things sooner rather than later. The concept of at least a one-time zero-based budget activity would give us a chance to put those things on the table as a set of priorities and see how they fit in. So I think we're all kind of talking in the same direction here, but I just wanted to acknowledge that I think we have some opportunities to do sort of exactly that kind of checking on overtime and ensuring that we don't end up where Councilmember Shaw is concerned about, because I share those concerns with some of the amendments that I hope to offer here in a moment.
Very good. Any further discussion on this item before we proceed to vote? Councilor Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to vote in favor of this amendment, and it's not because we don't want to fully staff our police department. As Director Zeller said, this has a $0 change to the budget. It has a zero impact on the actual approach that Chief and the city will use to hire and to staff that department. It's full speed ahead. We are hiring as much as we can, and we know that there will be vacancy savings. The fact that we have a large department with some non-zero turnover, and the fact that we hire at lower rates than we tend to have people retire, there will be vacancy savings. So the idea of saying that we're not going to budget for any estimate of vacancy savings is not very transparent to the taxpayer. Also, if we're going to say that we're going to cut overtime by $500,000, I think that's like almost 25% of the overtime budget for the year, which is not feasible. There is no path for the department to cut their overtime by 25%, and we know this now. So it's not good budgeting, and it's not fair to put the department in that position where they have to come back and justify that they're not hitting their numbers from an artificially lowered budget amount that we created just because of this perception that's been created incorrectly that we're not hiring as much as we can. I understand it's a political preference. We just want to make a statement that we are hiring, and so we're doing this kind of a budgeting trick to make it seem like we're doing something that in reality we're not changing anything at all. So I'm not. This goes against my ideas of transparent, accountable budgeting, responsible budgeting, putting our departments in a place where they can succeed. And so I'm going to vote against this one tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion. Councilmember Dean.
Thank you, Mayor. Andy, Tom brings up some good points here because I think when you look at what you budget, you budget what you anticipate that you're actually going to do. And so moving this $500,000 out of overtime into police, maybe this is a question for Chris, or Chief if he's out there, is is that really an expectation that can be done? If it's not, then I think that we should budget what is expected, because that's what budgets are for. Is what you kind of forecast what you're going to do. If we are forecasting something that is unrealistic, as Tom is mentioning, that I think that maybe we not consider this amendment. Chris, you want to?
So, Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, the key word I'm going to key off of what you just said is, can it be done? It's possible. Is it likely? Based on the last 6-7 years of authorizing over hiring, I don't think it's likely, but it can. And so I think the council, if it passes this, is sending a clear, consistent message that administration has been advocating for 6 years. I'm saying you can overhire. I'm saying when you go through our hiring processes, if we've got 7 vacancies and you've got 11 people that you want to offer a job to, offer all 11. And so, there's a message here. I think I support, it's ultimately your guys' call. I think it's important, though, to note that if we are not successful, what you will see, and those will be in those monthly conversations, is we've needed to shift some money out of the payroll line item over to the overtime line item. And we've been doing that both directions to meet the needs. I believe the intent of the policy body, the intent of the adopted budgets, and ultimately working diligently to fully staff. Now,
Okay.
I'm going to use this as a way of putting more energy behind in the council, if it passes it, how important it is to you, the message to the chief of police and to city administration, that we got to get more creative than we have in the past 6 years at getting fully staffed.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers my question because I just want to make sure that you believe that staff can do that. And so I will support this amendment because I believe that you're right. It does send a good message. It is obtainable by the city if the chief works hard to do some hiring. I think that's what budgets are for, is to try to then forecast what we expect to try to get done and what you expect to try to accomplish in the city. So If it's not unrealistic, then as I heard you say, it can be done. May not be done, but that's where I think the discussions with the budget committee are going to take place. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Good. Councilor Kennedy wanted to follow up there.
Well, I think it's been a good discussion, but I think one thing is we do need to push and we do need to make sure, and this council needs to come forward in saying, we do believe that we need to be up to that 177. And when people keep on questioning this, and your council members, you have all throughout the year to come back and address any of these, and we can amend this budget anytime. We're going to put some teeth into the budget committee and have reporting coming back every month. But the one thing we want to tell people is they didn't vote for a public safety levy a few years ago, and we didn't get enough cops on it that it didn't work. We want to tell them we're making sure there's enough money allocated to go with the 177. If you think it's a political stunt, then so be it. But it's something I think this council better get behind and start saying, we do want those officers on the street, and we want Billings to be thought of as a very safe city. So this is a small little amendment. It's an amendment that shows that we are behind hiring more officers and going forward. Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion on the motion before we proceed to vote? Okay, then the motion before you is for approval of so-called Kennedy 1 budget amendment. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. If opposed, say nay. Voting in opposition, Councilmember Ripsis. I believe all the council members voting in favor. So motion is approved. Councilmember Kennedy, do you want to move on with Kennedy 2?
I will. And Kennedy 2 is passed through the budget committee. And this amendment is to remove car allowances from the fiscal year 26 budget. Car allowances were not put in. We had voted and taken them out. The only reason I brought this amendment forward is because, as was mentioned by one of the budget committee people, that at any time the city administrator could backfill those positions. I think that's what you said, Mr. Rupus. And so what happened is I looked at that and I said, no, we don't want to backfill. We want everyone to have the opportunity that they can go forward with, fill out the mileage allowance like everyone else. Every state agency right across the street, the county, everyone does the mileage. So what we're doing is everyone has that opportunity. I don't want any of the employees to have to take it out of their own pocket. They can be reimbursed at the state mileage, and all we're doing is making sure we pass this budget as a reminder that we're not backfilling in any of those budgets. So that's why it's there, and I make a motion that we approve Kennedy 2.
Second.
I'm going to, I should have done this at the very beginning, but we're not too deep into it. Just ask Councilmember Boyett to, our deputy mayor, to run the discussion on this, because I get one of these allowances. So if it stays out, I am impacted. If it comes back in, I am impacted financially. I don't know whether that's really a conflict of interest, but it seems like it might be, and so if only the parents' purposes. Councilmember Ripsis?
I think the underlying motion of staff's recommended budget included your cut. So regardless of whether this goes, your cut was already in the main budget that we've already kind of have a motion to approve.
Yep. You've already lost it.
Yeah.
Hasn't been voted on yet.
So yeah, I don't know how to, but it still seems something could happen that would impact me, and I'd rather not be involved. How about that? So Councilmember Boyett.
So we do have a motion from Councilmember Kennedy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Neese. Okay, now would either one of you like to talk about it?
I have clarification.
Okay, Councilmember Neese.
You indicated for terminated for fiscal year 26. It sounds to me like this would be a policy for all budgets, not just fiscal 26. because it could come back in 27. So is this really termination for fiscal year 26, or are you terminating car allowances for future budgets as a policy?
Councilmember Kennedy?
Since we were just addressing fiscal year 26, that's what the motion is.
Okay, so that means fiscal year 27, they can bring car allowances back, and council would have to remove it at that time as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. Unless I missed something, this really did need to come back as a budget amendment. I believe we voted on an initiative to send it to the Budget and Finance Committee. I don't think we ever voted on the underlying issue as council to approve this as a policy. So just to say, I think it's good it's an amendment. I am not going to support it. I do not like the way that this has been gone about. I think it would have been more palatable to do this going forward for a class of people coming in and not to retroactively take pay from people that are currently employed in the city. I don't like that. I don't think it sends a good message of confidence to our directors. And so for those reasons, I'm not interested in supporting this. But again, I would have liked to have had the conversation about for the future. I think I could have gotten on board with that. But those are my reasons I will not support.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Repsis?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll just make a comment because Councilmember Kennedy referenced my earlier statement. My statement was not that staff will or the city administrator will backfill their salaries this year. That doesn't happen. That's not how our salary step system works, or our compensation system works in the city. But what will happen is the next time that salary studies are done and our director's compensation is compared to their peers, our director's compensation will look a little lower than it did previously because previous salary studies have included car allowances as part of their compensation, comparing them to other cities. So in the future, when we balance our director pay against market pay, which a market pay system is something I think most of us support, there will be some type of adjustment just to get them back to where market pay is. And that will come about as a result of reducing this small component of their compensation. Like that or not, that's just kind of how the compensation system works. And so the end result of this policy change will cost the city money over the next 10 years. It will just cost more because that will go into base compensation and they'll get steps on that and cost of living on top of that and whatnot. So this is a fairly cost negative change for the city. And as far as I stated earlier when the initiative was brought up, I think it's an overreach into the actual management of employee benefits that our city administrator should be able to control. So again, I'm against the amendment. It doesn't do anything, but so it's not the worst thing in the world. But I wanted to speak to it since Councilmember Kennedy called me out.
Anyone else? Councilmember, let's go to Councilman Gulick next.
And when we looked at other compensation packages for other cities, it's quite common to actually have vehicle allowances, mileage for trips. I mean, mileage is used commonly for trips, like out of the city, but for driving around town, I've heard from staff, it's like there's no way they're gonna take track every mile that they drive going across town. That means that they're not going to do it, and we're not going to compensate them for their allowance. Then either we're decreasing their overall compensation, or we're forcing them to spend a lot of unproductive time trying to track their mileage. I think this amendment sort of demonstrates to our professional staff that they're not really valued or respected. And, I think we have problems right now in terms of have our budget problem. If we have our directors deciding that, maybe I'm going to go to a place where I'm more appreciated and valued, we're going to have a lot more problems. So I just don't think this is a good idea. I will not vote for it.
Anyone else? Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Andy, if I understand correctly, the car allowances are already out of this budget. Okay, and so now in replacing car allowances is the mileage reimbursement. And so the staff have the opportunity to reimburse, but as Councilmember Gulick said, it's tedious. I've had to do it. I've worked under both systems, car allowances and mileage, and mileage system is a little tedious, although there are some cool apps out there that that you can get. It helps track your mileage. Just to let you know, I'm actually doing that now. Makes it so much easier. I guess the question I have is, I mean, their compensation, when you look at compensation packages, you're still going to report that as some type of reimbursement to them. So they're still going to be compensated for reimbursement of their mileage. In fact, often in my business, we get people who will go buy the little, small electric car, and they get, what's their mileage rate reimbursement now? 70, 80
I
cents?
thought it was 70 cents, but
Yeah, it's pretty,
haven't looked
it's
recently.
quite a bit. And so they actually make quite a bit of money on having a smaller car being reimbursed for mileage than they do just a car allowance. And so there is some benefit there for the staff. But again, it is tedious. It's easy to do a car allowance. So I guess this is a good experiment to see how it works budget year this year. And since it's not a permanent change, I think we can address it the next budget cycle to see if car allowances come back or if we stick with the mileage reimbursement. So I will support this. Thank you.
Any further discussion before we vote? One last time. Okay. With the mayor abstaining right now, if in favor of Kennedy 2, raise your hand, please. Councilman Neese, Councilmember Owen, Councilman Rogers, Kennedy, Aspenleiter, Tiswell, and Boyette. Those opposed, raise your hand. Councilmember Repsis, Shaw, and Gulick, the motion passes. Mayor, we're back to you, and can I make a suggestion that it's time for a break?
You should have done it while you had the gavel. But yeah, hopefully we'll make it quick and we'll not go too late on the rest of our meeting, but it is 7:53. Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll start with Councilmember Owen. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We left off in our discussion working through budget amendments in item number 7. We finished the 2 Kennedy proposals, and we have written versions we got this weekend from Councilmember Owens. So if there's no objection, I'm just going to ask Councilmember Owen to start us with so-called Owen number 1, assuming that's still something you'd like to pursue.
Mayor, if it's all right, I'd like to start with Owen 3.
Would you, however you want to, go ahead.
Thanks. So I would move the adoption of Owen Amendment 3, which will clarify some of the language about state law. And if there's a second, I'll elaborate.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bernice.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So the current budget resolution in Section 5 indicates that there's an increase of 39.86 mils from the prior fiscal year, and then gives the state legislature a lot of credit for reducing property tax. I don't think that's fair. Quite frankly, we were ordered to impose some mill levies, and I think we should clarify that so that the taxpayer truly understands what happened with these last property tax bills. So we had a little conversation over the break that my initial draft that was circulated to all of you might not have been fully accurate. So to be specific, the language would read after prior fiscal year, due to the passage of HB 231 and SB 542, which directs City Council to levy additional mills to equal FY25 revenue levels, which is technically more accurate than what I had drafted.
So that's being corrected on the screen that you have in front of us to reflect how it was stated by Councilmember Owen. So the new language would say, due to the passage of House Bill 231 and Senate Bill 532, which I think that should be singular or plural rather, which direct City Council to levy additional mills equal to the fiscal year 25 revenue levels. Okay.
So
And
again,
go ahead.
this is just a simple transparency issue to make sure the taxpayer understands what has happened. I think it's an appropriate and correct statement of fact, and I would ask for your support.
Very good. Councilmember Boyette. Councilmember Neese had already made the second, so we've got a motion made and seconded. Any discussion before we proceed to a vote? Okay, if in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the adoption of Owen 2, which would ask the Budget and Finance Committee to collaborate with staff on a zero-based budgeting planning exercise for the fiscal year 27 budget. And if there's a second, I will explain.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Neese. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to do this one first because it's a little bit connected to my last amendment, which will be Owen 1. So thank you all for indulging me going in backwards order here. We have some real challenges coming up in fiscal year 27, and those challenges begin really immediately. So I have asked that we contemplate this planning exercise, and I want to be clear that it is a planning exercise as we begin the implementation of the fiscal year 26 budget. So a zero-based budgeting activity is something that council has discussed for a number of years. It long predates my time on council. I think what is happening in 2027, the combination of state law shifting from a mandate to impose levies to a discretionary option to impose levies, the concerns we know we have coming up from Northwestern Energy rates. We have real fiscal challenges ahead of us and questions about whether or not we will be going to the public for a mill levy or something else. I think it's time for us to engage the public, inform ourselves, and really be very transparent in how this budget is built. And specifically, we're talking here about the general fund and the public safety funds, the two largest mill levy supported funds, and assess all of the assumptions, habits, everything that has been layered into the budget over the decades that it has existed. There's some real advantages to doing this. It will help us better understand all of our assumptions. It will help us align the funding priorities with council priorities. It will help us understand where we sort of run out of our existing budget authority and where we might either need to make cuts or go to the public with a ballot question or take whatever action is available to us under state law. This is a planning and public transparency argument. And even if only 10 people in the public watch the Budget and Finance Committee go through this exercise, I think it gives us the opportunity to say to our constituents, we truly looked at everything. We looked at every dollar and we justified it before coming to you to ask for more or before taking the authorities that will exist under state law. I do not want this to be a burdensome activity. It's certainly not a light lift, but I think the conversation for us at council belongs, or in the Budget and Finance Committee, belongs at a program or service level rather than deep into the operational details. For us to say, if we had $0, what's the first most important thing we would fund? And then the next most important, and then the next most important. And when do we run out of money? And what does that mean for the priorities that we set, for the way we allocate dollars, or for how we interact with the public? I want to start this, and the reason that we have this in the resolution now is because I believe that, first of all, we need lead time as we head into 27, and I would like to ask our department directors and our city administrator to be thinking about where we end up in 27 as we begin implementing the fiscal year 26 budget. So I think there is a reason to put this in the resolution, to begin this work now, to begin being very serious about where we're going and what that means for how we go to the public with some of the fiscal challenges that we are being faced with. I think FY26 and FY27 are linked because of state law. And I think this is the kind of planning exercise that will give us confidence that we have set the right priorities and give the public confidence that we are really looking at everything before we make our decisions for 27. So that's a lot, and I'm happy to answer questions, but I would ask your support for this language.
Very good. Thank you. Discussion or questions? Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you. Thank you. And I really appreciate the clarification that this is an exercise. I think that's an appropriate way to begin this. Chris and Andy, how much work are we looking at? I'm getting quite concerned. We've had a lot of initiatives and things where we keep lumping more stuff onto staff's plates. And I don't want to put staff in a position where they're scrambling around trying to accomplish something. I like that this doesn't have to happen immediately. But can you either or both of you speak to that?
Sure. I'll take the first half, and Andy, please jump in and add. So really, I think it requires that the dozen of us, the 11 of you, myself as your administrator, and then I've got another dozen people on our side, on the staff, are working very closely together on managing the expectations here. It is so easy to say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, this is going to be very time consuming. But I cannot argue that it isn't an extremely important thing. How we allocate resources is one of, if not the most important kind of policy decision you make. I already regret Andy and I proposing that we not fill the budget analyst position, because we're going to need every person, both internal to the finance department, as well as the directors and their teams that are involved in the general fund and public safety funds, to be very engaged in this. So we have to be real about the other things that are not going to get done because this is going to be done. And that's a whole lot easier said than done, but that's what I would ask you for, because the date of January 31, we normally start the budget process right after the Christmas holiday, New Year holiday. This will have us engaging, we speculated this morning, maybe after Halloween. I mean, this is going to take some serious effort. So that's what I would ask, that we can't just give that lip service and say, yes, we see it. We're going to have to be better at saying no to the other things you're expecting, particularly out of those departments, and Andy and myself, of other things that affect the organization.
And Councilor Shaw, I think you also wanted Andy, or asked Andy to comment.
Yeah, or I guess my follow-up to this would be, is this the kind of big enough project that it needs a fiscal note of some kind, that it needs additional funding, that we need to find that before saying yes to this?
So I don't know. At this point, I'd say no. I think my hesitation, I emailed Councilmember Owen back saying, I intend to say this tonight, just give you a heads up. I think this will be a huge time commitment for all departments that are involved in general fund and public safety, and to be successful, right? She had suggested via email, perhaps, is there a need to have a facilitator of some type? And, at this point, I'm saying no. But to be honest with you, the extent to which we're going to go through this process, to what level of detail, I may get to a point and say that, yeah, we need a facilitator or someone to come in and help with this. But through some conversations with her, I think the goal is not to say, all right, justify your number of paper clips and your number, it's not to that level, which initially I thought hit the brakes. But I think regardless, to be successful here, it's going to be a significant time commitment from both staff, but also the Budget and Finance Committee. I don't think meeting once a month for 2 hours is going to be enough to really do it well. And I don't know what that time commitment is going to look like at the Budget and Finance Committee level, but it's going to be more than 2 hours a month. Because my understanding is, if we break a department into some sort of division or program, and we're saying, all right, it's not a foregone conclusion that we're going to have accountants in the finance department. So let's go through why this is what it is. Well, they do this, there's laws, et cetera, and here's what it costs to have that. And you get a small department like finance, and we might, we might need a new computer. Take that out of my too soon. Where was I? Yeah. So I think in the finance department, you'd have, 4 or 5 programs, each with, I would assume, 2 or 3 options, like a absolute bare minimum base case. Here's, maintain status quo, and absolute best case. And so you've got a lot of information to look at and consume and really understand. And, but I think what we had talked about is if this passes, my misunderstanding earlier was that this would be the process used to develop the FY27 budget. And I'm understanding that is not the case. I'm a little more receptive to it. And perhaps we would start with the finance department, where I wouldn't have to put in as much work to say, okay, here's what I think this looks like. Is that what you think it is? And we get some consensus, and then we can go further on with other departments and really hopefully have something that's helpful.
Okay, I like that. I'm not hearing either of you say, you've got to be more candid. But if candidly this is a huge lift and we just don't have the capacity or resources, I need one of you to say that. Or I'm going to believe we do.
It is a huge lift, but it is taking other things off the table. So I don't know what those other things are, but you're going to help determine what those other things are.
Okay.
It is the expectation. And if, just as we've said, right, we can amend the budget to adjust to our desires or realities relative to the police department. Well, we had added a couple FTEs to the finance department, but we pulled them both back. So we have no more resources correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but I don't think we are now any further FTEs ahead in the finance department than we were 6 years ago.
Correct.
But the Budget and Finance Committee and its work, which is invaluable, is using significant resources to do it well. So there is a disconnect there.
Yeah, I agree.
So
There's a disconnect.
we need to fix those. We need to find ways to figure those out long term, because it isn't just do more with less.
Okay, just 2 comments and then I'm done. I would encourage you to think of a way maybe this could dovetail with a council retreat and doing some of the work that way. Because I think the larger council is going to need to be involved in these discussions. Budget and Finance, you're going to have to start meeting weekly like Legislative Committee did during the session. It's a real fun time.
We are candidly opposed to that.
And if I could, kind of in a conversational way, that is the other point I think is going to need to be finessed, which is
the committee is a minority of the elected body deliberately. This is an issue that every one of you, for good reason, the budget, are extremely engaged and invested in. So we're going to need some help making sure that we don't get the committee the committee working in a way that turns out to be not well spent time if it's quite contrary to where the majority of the council wants to be going. So I'm not exactly sure how we improve that, but I think that'll be something to be sensitive to.
Mayor, I don't mean to step on Councilmember Shaw's time. I just want to be clear that my initial preference was to have this be a full council activity with a facilitator. I had received feedback from other council members that they were less enthusiastic about that. But if this council prefers to do this as a full council activity, a Saturday morning or something, that was my initial intent. So I am very open to that conversation if that's the kind of consensus position here.
I really appreciate that. And I would, as this is being finessed out, would advocate for that and potentially a council retreat kind of situation where we can work through some of this.
That was fully my preference. And I think if we could adopt this tonight, we could work on that towards the final, finessing the language towards the final. And quite candidly, I really hate to sort of brainstorm off the cuff, but what we could talk about over the next 2 months, we did choose not to have a primary. That leaves some money in the budget. And if we think that budget analyst position, and I would put myself in the category of that budget analyst position is necessary, if that's an FTE that we need to add in before August, then let's start having that conversation. So just sorry to step on Councilmember Shaw's time.
No problem. If you're done, Councilor Shaw, we'll move on. Councilor Boyette, Councilor McGulick, and Councilor Asplander.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm really extremely disappointed. I was the one that advocated for you to get a budget analyst last year, and I really did, because what's more important now going forward? It's not this desk, it's somebody that can figure out the budget going forward. So I'm disappointed. There is money potentially for this. Andy, I mean, you need to step up and say, yes, I would like to have a budget analyst, or no, I don't need one at all. But think about, not today, but next year, 2 years from now, things are can't see them getting better for us. They're only going to seem to be going down. So please help us with this. I'll be the first one, anyone, to make an amendment to get you some help if we think you need it.
Very good.
I like all the positions we're holding vacant. I think there is a serious endeavor to try to get them funded again. I don't, where we're currently at, I don't see that happening in 27, but I think it is important. I mean, these positions existed. We've used them, well, or they've been a priority. In my opinion, they should be the first ones filled as we're adding positions into the general fund and public safety funds in the future.
Very good. Councilmember Gulick, Councilor Asplander.
I like the idea of a zero-based budgeting. I don't have a clue how long it takes to do an exercise like this. It sounds interesting. But I also want to make sure we don't have a sort of unfunded mandate. So I'm glad to hear that, open to or encouraging of budget analyst position. That was one of my reasons for opposing a primary as well. I don't know if I guess maybe the budget analyst piece takes care of my concerns. Either that or else we need to, it's either a budget analyst or else we need to actually be explicit about where we're dropping. We can't just keep adding more things on. So go budget analyst.
Councilor Asplander, and then I'll make some comments.
I'm going to support it, and I'm doing it a little tepidly, only because we have proven in the 2 years that I've been on council, or 18 months I've been on council, we can't do anything efficiently or effectively. And it takes 4 times as long as it should to get anything done when the 11 of us get in the same room. And that's just a fact. And that's been the same fact for councils prior to us. So if we're going to head into this, we have to have some serious bumpers. And I think a facilitator is not optional. I think it's absolutely necessary to keep us on track. Otherwise, even this conversation spun into 30 minutes. And you can't do that on every part of a budget in a department. I mean, we are not equipped as a body to even work efficiently with ourselves. And I think we have to be open to admitting that. So if we're going to do it without it turning into an absolute goat rodeo, we're going to need somebody to keep us on track. And I'm concerned about our ability to actually even get through it without having a derailment. I mean, our own council retreat, in my opinion, was a colossal waste of time and a joke. I mean, we didn't get anything done that was meaningful and derailed a number of times because we can't stay on task and we can't stay focused on moving the ball forward. So I'm tepidly supporting this, but we have to have some clear structure in my mind for this to be fruitful before everybody just gets pissed off and walks out of the room. Because there is a high likelihood that will happen if we get all 11 of us in the room doing that.
My comment is I oppose this, and not necessarily the concept, but largely I'm not sure I understand the concept. I know I don't understand the concept, and I don't like the idea of this is a budget approval, and we're talking about process of budget adoption, which is a different thing. And so this is not fully baked, but it's not intended to be baked. It's supposed to be something of an investigation, which I get, but I think that it's premature. The place that this should start is in a smaller group, namely our Budget and Finance Committee, and that's why we got it. And if they want to pursue the investigation of possible zero-based budgeting change from the last 50 years that we've done this, okay. But they should put together a report. They should do their investigation. They should find out what other cities do. They should just tell us what it might look like in writing, what the cost would be, what the goal is, what the problem to be solved is, and do that in writing, do that on their own time, meet every day if they want to, and then bring it back to the council with some sort of results of their investigation. Obviously, it's not going to be a final product, but it would be a better product than involving the whole group in this fashion through the budget process. So I don't want to rain on the parade of the concept too much, but procedurally, I don't think this is the way to go about it. Other discussion on the motion, Councilmember Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm mostly in agreement with that. I'm not opposed to a zero-based budgeting exercise. I have the same concerns as Councilman Aspenleiter about our ability to actually do that, primarily because I don't think we have that skill set. It's not that we can't get along in a room. I think we're probably not the right ones to do a zero-based budgeting exercise of this sort by ourselves, certainly. So strong leadership there, facilitation is important. I'm going to oppose this because I don't think it has any business being in this budget adoption resolution. It's kind of that typical Washington, D.C. thing where something has to pass, so just throw this stuff in it. And this is a council initiative kind of wrapped up as a change to a resolution. And I don't think it belongs here. I wish it had been brought forward as an initiative, or at least just we should have brought it up through the Budget and Finance Committee and made a recommendation to council. I don't think it has any meaning to this conversation of passing this year's budget. So I'm just going to oppose this for now, and I'm sure it'll pass, but I think we should have gone about this in a different way.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion before we proceed to a vote. Councilor Boyette.
Yeah, I guess I've been thinking about this. My first thought was no, second one, yes, but I don't know that what does it have? Andy, by passing this or not passing this, doesn't have any effect on the budget itself, does it? Question.
I don't think it has any effect on the FY26 budget. My understanding is it would have effect on kind of development and process of the future year's budget and perhaps any discussion about a mill levy.
But not the 26 budget.
Unless I'm missing it, no, I don't think so.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll do a hand vote. Again, the motion is for approval of so-called ON2 as drafted. I don't think there was any changes, right? So if in favor of the motion, please raise your hand of voting in favor. Council members Neese, Owen, Rogers, Kennedy, Tidswell, and Aspen-Leiter. If voting in opposition, council members Shaw, Gulick, Cole, Boyette, and Ripsis. So the motion passes 6-5. Thank you very much. Councilmember Owen, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is my last amendment, Council, or Owen 1. This would move us in the direction of some kind of line item budget analysis. If there's a second, I will elaborate.
There is a second. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. So the Budget and Finance Committee has been discussing a line item budget process for some extended period of time. This amendment is crafted as a slight limitation on the city administrator's authority provided in Section 3, which I think has a new line in the underlying draft that as the city administrator is moving inside of a fund, he will do some transfers or revision reports to City Council's Budget and Finance Committee. This would just add a request that we try to do it ahead of time instead of after if possible, although acknowledging sometimes that's not possible. And then the conversations, and I think Budget and Finance Committee has voted at least once, if not twice, to begin moving towards a line item budget. But Director Zeller has very appropriately pointed out that we might not know what line item we want to be at, and has made the recommendation that what if we tried for a period of time instead of him just providing a lot of detail to the Budget and Finance Committee, and let us see if a line item budget would actually make sense, or if we understand the appropriate level to be at, and what amount of discretion should be given to the city administrator to deviate from a line item. We just quite frankly need to make a much more data-driven, evidence-based discussion. And I think his proposal is eminently reasonable here. And that's what's captured in bullet C. And you've heard him refer to it a few times, just doing some enhanced reporting to the Budget and Finance Committee so that we can come back to council and say, look, we looked at this for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. A line item budget at the class level makes sense. And the city administrator should be able to deviate 15% or 20% without coming back for a budget amendment. Whatever, we need to actually do some analysis. And I think what he has suggested in response is eminently reasonable. I do want to note, without belaboring the point, that he has expressed in a very fair and honest way concerns about both zero-based budgeting and a line item budget. I cannot commend you enough for your professionalism and the way you have conducted it. You have been a superior staffer on this. I am so grateful for your counsel, your candor in saying, I like this stuff, I don't like this stuff. You have come back with a recommendation on a middle ground, even though I know you wish this would just go away. And I think it's really important to put on the record what an extraordinary partner you've been in trying to figure this process out. So thank you for all the work you've done. And I would ask your support on this amendment.
Oh, very good. Councilmember Owens addressed it. Councilmember Neese, did you want to address the motion?
Not at this time.
Okay. Discussion now. Councilmember Owen, if I can just ask the question, are A and C contradictory? So should A, which calls for quarterly reporting, be just deleted? And I know Andy also was concerned, what if the budget committee doesn't meet? Right.
Yeah.
So if we just got rid of the word monthly and said at the end, at each meeting of the committee, so the city administrator would be responsible to provide a report to the finance committee if the committee meets.
Thanks, Mayor. So let me answer the latter one because it's the easier one. I think we had a conversation before the meeting that if he needs to send us an email report, that's fine. I'm not sure that we'll have the luxury of not meeting at least monthly for the next few months, but I think an email report or something to that effect is perfectly fine and not at all a concern. I have struggled as well with whether or not A and C are duplicative, and I think they are not. Because the process of looking at where we are on every line item to determine where we are on overtime, for example, is a thing. How many moves in that fund is separately. And I don't want to spend every month going through where money might have moved because I don't think it happens that often, is the point. I think it happens rarely enough that quarterly is fine. But then monthly, let's just look at where spending is actually at with a mind towards how we get towards some type of more budget transparency. So I think they are similar, but I do think they're actually different.
Okay. And I guess I just asked staff, do you understand that distinction? Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I think there's, how I've envisioned it is basically two reports. One that's a detailed budget to actual, and then a separate report that here's any budget transfers that have occurred or are intending to occur. They're going to tie together a lot. So more than likely end up seeing both of them. But yeah, I think they are. I can envision two separate reports for A and C.
Okay. And Chris, this is your responsibility. You'd be okay with making a written report if there was no meeting report?
Yes.
Or Andy would be the source of that, I suppose. So, okay.
I'll give it to Chris.
Okay. Okay. So there's a motion on the table, made and seconded. Discussion now. Councilmember Shaw.
Thanks. I have the same question. How onerous is this going to be, Andy? Is this like open another spreadsheet and press print, or is this like you have to data entry everything? Absent a budget analyst, what kind of workload is this adding?
That's a good question, and I appreciate the concern. This one I am not as concerned about the time commitment on. We do, it's essentially going to be extract, add some tables, and it'll be a probably 30-minute process to get the reporting, I think.
Perfect.
Necessary. Yeah, it should be pretty quick.
Very good. Other discussion? Councilor Rasmussen.
With maybe just for some clarification, I mean, with all of this additional work for the Budget and Finance Committee, I mean, do we at least get upgraded parking or valet service at the airport or something?
I will drive your car for you
okay,
if that
good.
helps. Yeah, happy
Good.
to.
That's the most unattractive committee to be on if you're running for city council these days now.
You sure don't get a car allowance coming down. Mileage. All right. Any other discussion on the motion before we vote? I don't see any. So if in favor of the motion for approval, proposed what we call 0-1 as drafted, please say aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes those written amendments. It is theoretically possible to offer ones from the floor. So, council, are there any other proposed budget amendments before we call this one a wrap? Chris.
How might you suggest, in this distinct disadvantage here, Andy and I have not talked about this, but I think it builds off of this conversation. I don't see, or I believe we need that budget analyst position. If it were authorized tonight, we wouldn't have the position filled for months. The person wouldn't be up to speed on things for quite some time. I would ask that you give some direction. We did budget 175 for elections.
Correct.
We are not having a primary at the suggestion or at the estimate that we got from the county. I think there's $75,000 there, and I would advocate that we should add that position back in, and that maybe you ask us to come back to you before, with some plan moving forward. But as for budget adoption night, I would ask that you consider allocating that 75 differently from election over to this position, if you're inclined.
Chris, is that something that would happen in the preliminary budget you're requesting tonight? Obviously, we could do it in August, but
we could do it in August. However, doing it in August means we don't start the process for another 2 months.
So you're open to it.
So
be
tonight means we get to start moving.
Okay, I think Councilmember Boyette should have the honor of addressing this. So, Councilmember Boyette.
I started this a year ago, and I said, Andy, you need a number 2, but the person needs to be a budget analyst. They said, great, we were going to hire him, but we didn't. So I'll try it again, folks. I move that this council approve a budget analyst for Andy as soon as possible. This is what we need for the future, for going forever. We're going to be looking at budgets from now on. There's no question about that. So you need to help Andy. So everybody, we want to do this.
Councilmember Rasmussen indicated a second, I believe. Yes. Okay.
Just clarification on where the money's coming from.
That's what I was going to ask.
We can start. We have that $100,000 would be the first place to start, but that's a one-time.
75.
I think it's in non-departmental right now and would probably need to move to the finance department. Is that right?
And yes, and it's 75. because we'll want to leave 100 in there for the election.
Motion should be to move 75,000 to the finance department for a budget
Mayor.
analyst.
This is the inefficiency and that I'm talking about. Mr. Mayor, can we get a clarification on what the actual motion is, where the money's coming from, and,
Yeah.
and how we're going to do this so we have a clean
Try to pin that down.
process,
So,
please?
Councilmember Boyette, is there, based on that conversation, is the source of funding part of your motion? If so, can you restate that or clarify
Well,
for us?
I would like the motion to hire a budget analyst for the finance department.
And do we have a dollar amount on the expenditure as a cap? What was it? What was it at before?
It's yeah. I think for a full year, my guess, just based on the project coordinator for building, it's probably close to 100,000 for a full 12-month period.
But it won't be for a
It
full
will-
12-month
but yes,
period.
correct. It
So
would
that,
not
so
be.
what I would say is we have to live within the 75 number that we know is specific, detailed. We lower the election number from 175 to 100. We slide the 75 over, and the direction to the administration is that's what you've got to fill the position. So you'll time it where the 75 will get you through the year.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. And we worry about the following year.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm hoping that this budget analyst should be able to save, hopefully that's the idea, is to save us some money down the road. Hopefully that person could pay for themselves in essence.
Okay. So with that clarification of the motion, do we still have a second from Councilmember Aspenler?
No, I would propose a friendly modification to that. Can we agree to shift the $75,000 out of the election, pull $25,000 out of reserve so that we can make this happen now and proceed forward? I mean, I know that takes some money away, Andy, from your nest egg, but I think it's valuable. I think it's what we need to do. Trying to time this, I mean, if we try to time it, we're not going to hire it until October anyway. So let's just do it now, pull the extra $25,000 out of the reserve account and move it forward. Are you okay?
Okay. So that's the budget.
Got it.
Now, realistically, you may have some vacancy savings to keep your nest egg intact, but it is what we'll find out, I guess. Okay. So we have a motion. We have the second. You both addressed your motion. Is there now further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll move ahead to a vote. Okay, if the motion is clear to make an amendment for fiscal year 26 budget of $100,000 to fund the budget analyst position, with the source of the funds being those current non-departmental and reserves that would add up to $100,000. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Boyette will be submitting his application tomorrow. And Councilmember Asselin gets 25,000 of that. Okay. Anything else on item 7? Okay. We're done with item number 7.
Nope. We've got to.
We
need a budget adopted.
Yes. Yeah. Minor details. Minor details. Okay. So that's the list of all of the budgets. We need the final approval. The underlying motion is for approval with those amendments. If in favor of the now amended motion, we already had the public hearing. Oh, I apologize. Further discussion on that. I apologize. Sure. Is there any now further discussion on the amended underlying motion? Councilmember Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to belabor this. I said when we were sitting down here that I would not vote for a budget that assessed over what our charter authorized in terms of mills. I know what the state is forcing us to do. I want to express my appreciation to staff for getting us through this very complicated process. A very challenging budget year. I think you did a really good job identifying the least harmful ways to get through this and bringing us through this. It's been as good of a process as I think we could have expected this year. But I will, just to be consistent with what I said down there, vote against it. Not a reflection of the quality of the budget, but just, as Councilmember Neese would say, just consistency. Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion on the amended underlying motion. Councilmember Neese and Chris wanted to weigh in as well. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Councilmember
thank you,
Neese.
Mayor. I echo what Tom has to say in a lot of different ways, but I think that I think this budget will lead us to a better budget in the future. My concern is I think we probably didn't cut enough. There could have been money that we could have cut. That we don't really know what we don't know. And so I won't support this budget this time, but I do appreciate all the work that was done into it. I think we did kind of the best we could in the time we had with what the state threw us at the last minute. And I think looking forward to what is coming through some of the zero-based budgeting we're going to do, I think we'll have a much better budget in the future years, and it'll actually make us to be a little bit more leaner like we've been trying to get for years. So thank you.
Very good. Further discussion on the amended underlying motion. Now we can vote. All right. If in favor of the now amended motion to approve the budget, please say aye.
Aye.
If opposed, nay.
Nay.
Voting in opposition, council members Representative Neese. All other council members voting in favor. Motion passes 9-2. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, staff. Oh, and Chris, I apologize.
That's okay. Can I just, I'll be brief. Some similar things. Thanks to Andy, to the department heads, to the staff who worked through this, to our partnership with you guys working through the legislative process that affected this. So thank you all the way around that way. I think we also have to be considering it is hard for me to imagine us actually solving these problems long-term for our community without some kind of a significant economic transformation of Billings, Montana, or a tax structure change. And that is not in any way, shape, or form to negate the importance of our budget process. But I think those are a couple of also areas we need to challenge ourselves as a community to say, how are we going to transform from where we've been? We're a growing community, literally a growing community. But if you drive into town and you're not from Billings, Montana, you might not know that the biggest things you see, refineries and hospitals, don't fund any of our services. And so I'm just saying, I think that is absolutely a long-term challenge for us, is how are we going to either transform and strengthen our economy here in Billings, or have tax structure changes, which we're not in control of ourselves, because just tweaking around the edges year in and year out, I don't think is going to get us ultimately where we want to be and where our community wants us to be. So I just challenge us that that's something also to keep in mind as we work our way through running in as lean and as efficient of an operation as we can here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us into public comment on non-agenda items. If there's anybody like to comment on something that was not on our agenda tonight, this is your opportunity. Please come forward to the podium. Is there any comment on non-agenda items at this time? Any comment non-agenda items? No one's standing up, no one's coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period. We do have several initiatives on the agenda still tonight. The first, these will be our last items. The first one up is the South Billings Boulevard cleanup. Councilmember Kennedy, that was yours, so I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to have this go to a work session. And so we can go through the steps of making sure that the South Billings Boulevard cleanup is has a process. I received a lot of calls in the area. I was out at the landfill this morning. I'm waiting for the landfill to start identifying if the people are city or not. I know that comes about July 1. I counted, there were 10 vehicles lined up. Out of those, mine and 2 others were tarped. The rest of them were not. We had people that had branches hanging out and things like that. I want to thank Debbie for having a work crew out there on South Billings Boulevard today. And I have heard that you visited with the state and the city of Billings to get out and sweep on there and everything. A lot of the biggest problem is people hauling to the landfill. And so I'd like to ask the board to bring it back to a work session so we have the different, the phases on there so we can have a solution. And so Councilwoman Rogers and I can go back to a lot of the people on South Billings Boulevard. It's not a Ward 3 issue. It's a whole city issue. It's actually outside the city. It's a county issue too, because everybody hauls on that street. So I'm just asking to move this to a work session in July.
Okay, and so just to clarify, the motion is to put this on a work session agenda in July for staff to come back with additional information. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Okay, second by Councilmember Rogers. And I'll just comment that we did get an email from Debbie late this afternoon with some information about what has been going on there. Counselor, I don't know whether Debbie is still with us. Yes, Debbie is still back there. Yes. So I don't know, Debbie, if you want to just comment on your email, just so that council, which they may not have had a chance to read it. So.
Sure. Yes, thanks, Mayor and Council. I did send an email just enumerating or detailing some of the work we've been doing recently. This has been a priority for us, but not the top. We've had the optimization, the extras, the recycle, the not 300s to 90s, the pay as you throw. Solid waste has had a handful of things going on over the last couple of years. So this is a priority. We've been working on it the last couple months, and we'll continue working on it. So.
Very good. Any questions for Debbie? Debbie, one thing I would ask is if this does pass, that you could give us more information about the schedule for that cleanup. I know at one point there was a really specific schedule. I don't know if that's still the case, but that's the sort of thing that would be helpful information.
And I can give you that whether it passes or not. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I can put that in a Friday.
We should have that
weekly anyway. Sure.
But Councilmember Rupsis or anybody else with questions for Debbie while we have her? Yeah, questions for Debbie? Okay. Okay, I recognize Councilor Rupsis, then we'll recognize Councilor Shaw.
Very good. Debbie, I don't have a question for you. Anybody who's been out walking in the city, driving, biking, what have you, anybody who's participated in Bright and Beautiful, littering is an issue in the city. And I wish that this initiative had been more broad-based of what are we doing about littering? Why can't we do something about this as opposed to just focusing on that one particular area, which I think has some very unique challenges, of course, but I think they're being addressed. So I wish it was broad-based. I'm going to go ahead and support it, but I hope when we get to that conversation, maybe we can expand it a little bit and talk more about what we could do to get our streets clean around the city instead of just this one particular spot. Thanks.
Very good. Councilor Shaw?
Thank you. I'm not going to support this. It's probably no secret. I think our initiatives have gotten out of control. We keep adding more to staff's plate. I don't like it. In my opinion, this is just clearly a public works issue. I've always had public works be incredibly responsive when I write about here's a problem here in this area. I don't need a work session on this one area of the city. It doesn't have anything to do with money or a policy change, which is what we do at this level. So for those reasons, I'm a no.
Good. Other discussion? Councilor Bernice?
Yeah, yes, Mayor, I will support this initiative. I think we need an update on this, and I agree with Councilmember Rupsis that this could be expanded to really what we can do throughout the entire city, because there is trash everywhere. I think the alleys now, I'm seeing more and more trash in there because we used to have a 300s or went to 90s. You don't have the extra pickups, and so there is more trash around the alleys that I've seen. So we have a bigger conversation that we need to talk about. When I look at the fact that here are these fines, for the vehicles that are littering on the city streets, the cost for staff to get out there and pick that up is a lot more than that. These fines need to be a little bit more punitive, in my opinion. so that the people are more responsible in the way they're hauling their trash through this area. There's other areas that we can look at. I don't know, some of the questions I will ask is how can code enforcement get involved in there, or the CSOs, can they be involved in this to kind of to prevent this type of littering from happening throughout this part, especially this corridor here where it litters. So I look forward to that discussion.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? I'm just going to comment to Councilmember Rips's littering is a problem. And one of the most visible places along I-90, which isn't one of our roads. It's the problem with the Montana Department of Transportation, but historically they're overwhelmed. And so I'm hoping also maybe this discussion could broaden where we could partner and have a clear agreement about how frequently MDOT will get out there. They're very dependent upon volunteers. So now it's MDOT and their occasional volunteer groups, but maybe between the three of us, we could have a real detailed schedule, hold each other accountable. Yes, it would require some input, money, effort by the city, responsibility, but that's part of this. I'm sympathetic to Councilmember Shaw. I agree. I think this is best if we just asked the council or for Public Works to put it on the agenda. And then we don't need an initiative, but I don't see there's a lot of harm in it. So I'll vote in favor of it. Any other discussion before we do vote? Don't see any. So the motion is for approval of this South Billings Boulevard cleanup initiative. If in favor of the motion, we'll put it on a work session agenda in July. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, nay. Voting in opposition, Councilmember Shaw. All other council members voting in favor, motion passes. Second item, also Councilmember Kennedy initiative, Mayor Council Structural Enhancement Initiative. Give it back to you, Councilmember Kennedy.
Yes, and all of you have in front of you the council initiative. This is the Mayor Council Structural Enhancement Initiative. It's impacted because it needs to go to a vote of the people in November. This is a time element. If you read what I have stated, we have 86 days. So it would have to be approved by July 21st to place it on the ballot. Now, I am asking that we have the initiative, we pass it tonight, and we get it ready to go to the ballot. Just so you know what the initiative is, it's Article Section 3.04. I've gone through the charter, I've gone through the MCA codes, and what the codes have said is by a majority of the voters on the ballot, it can they can change the charter. It doesn't change the cap on the charter. It doesn't change the millage or whatever. All it changes is the mayor, the council, and the city administrator. And on this, just some changes. You have it stated in front of you, but in section 3.04, section mayor election and power and duties, A and B is not changed. Part C is the mayor shall be recognized as the head of the city government for all ceremonial and governmental executive purposes, for governing the city and the purpose of military law, and shall execute contracts, deeds, and other documents. The mayor shall have the executive administrative duties as required to carry out the responsibility of the city. And then in section 3.07, the city council and mayor as a majority shall in any manner dictate the appointment or removal of a city administrative officer and directors whom the city administrator with consent is empowered to appoint. And then section 3.08, administration. The mayor will operate as the chief executive officer with the city administrator assisting the mayor and the council. The mayor and the council may inquire and investigate the department budget and policy. The city administrator and department heads will report to the mayor and council and their terms of office. Section 4.01, the mayor will function as the chief administrator for the city, assisted by the city administrator. Both will be full-time, and the mayor's salary will be the same as the Yellowstone County Commissioners each year. The city administrator will be contractual. The mayor and council shall employ a city administrator based on merit for an indefinite term. And as you go through the city administrator duties, there's only a few changes: assisting the mayor to administer the affairs of the city and under the guidance of the mayor and council. All of this, I have gone through the codes. I have looked and done research. All we're doing is changing from the council and the mayor working with just one officer of the city, which is the city administrator. Now we have the chief administrative officer would be the mayor, assisted by the city administrator as the administrative staff. And the mayor and the council would then, and department heads would work under the city administrator, and they would also, the council would be able to have a direction in those departments. It's just a change in those two sections in the charter. Monetarily, it would eliminate a position and to be able to use that salary to pay for the mayor position, and it would probably be a savings. So all I'm asking is to be able to go forward, give it a vote of yes, and let's proceed to get this on the ballot. So I would make a motion that we put it on I would make a motion that we approve this to put it on the ballot.
Okay. Councilmember Kenny's already addressed it. Councilmember Owen, did you want to address your second?
Yeah, I think this is an important conversation to have. I think putting questions to the public on the structure of and form of government is entirely appropriate. I think the language might need a little massaging, so I'm a little anxious about putting it right on the ballot. But I certainly would be open to asking staff to draw up what the ballot language would look like and then voting on that. So I'm not 100% sure how to go forward. I didn't want the effort to die for lack of second, but I do think we might need to work on the legality of the language a little bit. But I support the voters having a chance to weigh in on this issue.
Okay, further discussion, Councilmember Ripsis, Councilmember Shaw?
So I'm a little confused. Can we clarify then, are we actually voting on this language to put it on the ballot? Or Councilmember Owen, are you saying this needs to be, the motion needs to be changed?
Councilmember Ripsis, my understanding is the motion made by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Councilmember Owen, is yes, this language is what would go on the ballot. Councilmember Owen was recognizing whatever might be possible changes, but the motion itself, as stated, is that this would go on the.
I'll call a point of order.
Was she?
That motion then is out of order because this is initiative section where initiatives are presented to be brought back to council for discussion and a review and approval at that time. So this motion is out of order, and I'll let you decide, Mayor.
The section of our code that deals with initiatives, which is something that's being discussed by the operations committee because it needs help, how this process should work, says, I'm quoting from the form, council initiatives, this section of the agenda is reserved for individual council member requests for future legislative for staff action. These shall be limited to giving direction to staff to assist in formulating policies, work plans, et cetera, for future consideration of the city council. An initiative moves forward by majority vote of the city council. I'm going to ask our city attorney to chime in here, but I'm inclined to agree with Councilmember Neese.
Council, Mayor and Council, thank you. I would agree that this is the portion of the meeting, council initiatives, where you direct staff. I don't think that you can vote here and now to put this language on the ballot. I think, as Councilmember Owen was alluding to, that she was supporting moving this initiative forward, but not this specific language to go on the ballot. So it would need to come back to a work session to, staff would need to work on this and bring it back to council at a work session, likely before it could be put on a regular business agenda for voting.
Okay, so Gina, I think, agreed with you, Councilmember Neese. Councilmember Kennedy?
I'm willing to do that. I don't have a problem doing that. I just, our timeline is it would have to be approved by July 21st. So this would have to come back to our July 14th with staff doing presentation on a ballot measure to go forward. And it would have to be voted on by the 14th so we could notify the election administration 86 days out before the election. So I'm willing to modify my motion. And my motion is that we go forward with council initiative on the mayor council structural enhancement initiative. Bring it back after staff has put together the ballot language, and then we have a discussion on July 14th. Vote to go forward with a passing vote. It would be put on the November ballot. Did I cover what you were looking for?
So the motion is for staff to come back with a proposal at the July 14th meeting that would be voted on the July 14th meeting.
Right.
Okay. Chris, and then we'll recognize council members. Did you want?
Just some date clarification. So the work session's July 7th, the regular meeting is the 14th. And you're right, what we've determined is July 28th is when a first reading needs to happen for anything that would be on the ballot in November. That's 91 days, I think, before the November 4th election. So July 1 is when a first reading needs to happen, then a second, and then whatever work session work before that, a second reading August the 11th with the ballot language included in it. So from a date perspective, just
Do we
clarifying.
have enough time?
Well, there's a lot of work to do here. I mean, so is it possible? Yes, but I think this is an engagement thing too. I mean, I think the way it's drawn up right now, there are some significant policy challenges. And I want to be careful not to weigh into and be perceived as anything other than I'm not aware of an administrator who would not report to the strong mayor. I mean, if we're going to a strong mayor form of government, the chief administrative officer isn't going to report to the board. He or she is going to report to the chief executive, the mayor. So I really think there are some things to work through to get it right, so that the voters can have the best opportunity to determine what form of government they want, based on what you put in front of them.
Okay, so the motion though is still July 14th meeting, is what I heard.
That is the regular meeting, not the work session, so.
That-
I have a second, yeah.
That's right, but the motion is, that's the current motion. So, so the first motion was withdrawn, and I should have clarified, that would have to require the consent of the second as well. So the first motion has been withdrawn, a new motion has been made. You heard the new motion. Is there a second to the new motion? Okay, so that's the new motion that's on the table. Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Boyette, Councilmember Bernice.
Thank you. I definitely will not support this. I don't support it as a policy goal. I don't support it in a vacuum of just putting one charter question on the ballot. I think even the way it's been presented as we're just changing some language, no, we'd be fundamentally altering the way that our government works. And yes, our citizens should have that choice. They were given a choice last June to open up the city charter, and they overwhelmingly said no. That said, I've talked with Councilmember Aspenleiter about some charter questions that I think we are interested in having a larger conversation about. I don't understand why this needs to be so rushed and get on the ballot immediately that we're looking at language that's murky. I personally do not want to tell staff to spend time working up ballot language that I'm not planning on voting yes on for any reason. Because part of the conversation is like, this is just in a vacuum, one issue. And we're not talking at all about how it's going to affect all the other parts of the charter. Also, just on a broader sense, making our government, the city's government, more like the county. I've never heard someone say that that's a great idea. That, wow, the county's government's working awesome. We love it that they've got 3 chief executive officers and no county administrator. I've never heard that from a citizen proposed as a great model. And this would, the way this is written, present that to our citizens as an option, which I don't think is responsible. That's my opinion.
Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. At the very least, this would have to go to a work session rather than a business session. I wouldn't want it to go to a business section and then we vote on it right then without even talking about it at some length and having more discussion from the staff. So I can't approve something that's going to be on a business section without a work session.
Councilmember Bernice.
Thank you, Mayor. I am concerned about it coming to a business session without further discussion to council. And so I think I could support something like this if it were come to a work session that we could discuss and work on the language. But to come to a business session, I mean, unless we have some type of council meetings with staff prior to that, to try to work out some of this language, I agree with Councilmember Owen and others that said there's a language in here that needs to be adjusted. I think just going to a business session is probably not the appropriate location. It would be best into a work session or a special session set up by the council for like a council committee.
And council hour is late, so we'll move to a vote soon. Just a warning, Councilmember Owen.
Thanks.
Councilmember Gillick.
Mayor, I just had a question sort of to the point that Councilmember Shaw had made. And obviously, Councilmember Aspenleiter circulated a potential initiative as well. Is the goal here then, in the minds of others who are having these conversations, to do like a July 21st work session conversation about charter amendments in general, with, voting on language on the 28th and then finalizing it on the 11th? Is that where we're going here? Mayor, if Councilmember Aspenleiter wanted to.
Being posed to whoever wants to respond. Councilmember Aspenleiter.
For me and what I'm going to propose, no.
Okay.
I think a reduction in the number of council, which is not this topic, is a much easier conversation. There is some logistics around that, but it's a much easier conversation than this. In this context, with this issue, I think a work session to discuss the goals of this and some of the structural and foundational language would probably be more beneficial than having it on the 7th as opposed to having it on the 21st and the thought that we're going to get it in a week after that, get the language done. So in the context of this motion, I'd like, if we're gonna move forward with this with a majority vote, I think we should have this on a work session on the 7th and start working that language, because again, I think this is it's likely going to take a little bit of time, and we're going to have to go through an iteration to make that work. So I would suggest that we put this on the 7th work session as an agenda item. And that's what I'm going to ask of mine as well, so that we start this earlier and we don't put ourselves up against the clock.
So you are going to ask for yours to be on a work session as well. Okay, so we could do a July 7th conversation about potential charter amendments, assuming the city administrator's willingness to bump some of those items, because the 7th is pretty full already. Apologies, Mayor, I just want to direct that, because the 7th is pretty full already. How many of those are movable?
You are correct that it is full. It is full. We've got to pull it up and look at it. The other thing I'm trying to figure out is staff availability in working with you guys on the policy direction. I mean, I think we don't know what the policy direction is other than out of Councilmember Kennedy. He's clear about where he wants to go, but I'll need the city attorney's office, and there are people with vacations and schedules and things that are not going to be available that I'll have to work with who we have. But that work is going to be wasted if there's not clarity from this body as to what we're trying to put together.
Okay. Councilmember Gulick, I'd recognize you. Councilmember Ripsis.
Yeah, I'll be opposed to bringing this forward. It's a huge change, and this is a rush job. It's not fully baked yet. I mean, I think having council bring this forward also is, rather than a separate government review panel, has the significant risk with voters will see it as self-serving rather than a more grassroots third-party review. So it's just fraught with a lot of issues, I think. I mean, if we were brought forward a lot sooner, it would just we're making it suddenly into a very big issue for our staffing, and yeah, I just can't support this.
Okay, Councilor Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not generally supportive of a strong mayor system anyway. I much prefer professional leadership and management to political leadership and management. That being said, I cannot believe that this body would say, in 3 weeks, we need to restructure, we need to come up with a language restructuring our entire form of government with no community engagement. We passed a charter back in 40 years ago with months, if not years, of community involvement to come up with our form of government. And here, in a matter of one work session, possibly two at the most, and then we're going to put language out in front of voters to fundamentally restructure this government. That is the height of irresponsibility. Political malfeasance, malpractice. I cannot state that more clearly. If we want to do this, we need to be thoughtful about putting something in front of the voters that can actually be considered and that has community involvement with it from the start. And we can do that, and we can do it over a course of 6 months and put it on next year. But to say that we want to get it out and finalized within the next month, absolutely no. I'm a hard no on this right now. I don't want staff taking their time. We just heard that we've got challenges with time with budgets, and how are we even going to get this this conversation about littering in July? And here we are, we're going to say, set aside everything else and now rewrite our system of government. Please vote no on this. Let's come back with a thoughtful approach to what would be reasonable to put in front of the citizens.
Any further discussion before we proceed to a vote? Okay. All right. So we'll vote. The motion again is still the original one for coming back. It's still July 14th. Is the new date to come back to council. That's the motion. Councilmember Neese?
Yeah, Mayor, I don't know if I said this, but I'll just say it quickly. I can't support this coming at that date. I could support it earlier because, like Councilmember Roops says, there needs to be time to discuss, modify the language. There probably has to be time. And if we can get it to a work session, we can talk about it, and we may be able to get it on to like the election, but I wouldn't say it's a guarantee we'll get it on the election this year. But probably maybe a year or so down the road, or maybe not at all, because I think the idea of having a conversation about a strong mayor in the city of Billings is a good opportunity to have that. And we could have used this to launch to have community involvement in that with this one topic. And there are strong mayor situations throughout the state of Montana. And so we can look at that is it a good idea for the city of Billings? But I think to just take it out, like Tom says, to throw it in the language and throw it out there without us having a full discussion about it at a business session, I think that's a little too fast. I could support it going to a work session, but not to a business session.
Okay, we'll move to the vote then. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Voting in favor, Councilmembers Owen, Kennedy, and Aspenlighter. If voting in opposition, please say nay. Nay. All their council members voting in the negative, so motion fails. That concludes those two initiatives. Councilmember Aspenlighter distributed an email to council over the weekend or this morning, I'm not sure, dealing with another topic. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Aspenlighter to tell us what he was thinking about.
Certainly, and so my request is going to be, as I indicated, to put a question on the ballot to reduce the size of council. That's not a structural change to how we operate. That's not a functional change in the way government works around here. It's a reduction in the number of council members sitting at this table. I think we show time and time again that 11 is very cumbersome. It's not efficient. It's not terribly effective a lot of times. And I think reducing the number of council members will make us a little more effective. So what I'm proposing does not impact the mayor's race. It still leaves a mayor in the same form or whatever form ends up being in the future, but it changes the city from 5 wards to 6 wards, 1 member per ward, a mayor at large, and it requires us to redistrict the city. Discussions with city administrator indicated that is not a terribly expensive or burdensome process to redevelop the district lines. I think the number was somewhere around that $30,000 mark, as has been done before in reworking the ward boundaries to settle up and balance up population base. I would propose this to go on this general ballot would be my goal. The process then from, if approved by the voters, would be over the next year, we redraw the district boundaries, and then in the 2027 municipal election, all 6 wards would be up and the mayor would stay because the mayor would have just got elected to a 4-year term, but all six wards would be up with staggered years. 3 would be on a 2-year term initially and then a 4 following, and 3 would be on a 4-year term and the standard 4-year term. So it doesn't change anything in the electoral process other than putting all 6 positions up at one time. So that's what I would ask. My motion would be to put that on a work session for July 7th to talk about that ballot language. If we need to come back again July 21st, we can touch the ballot language up and then have that on the 28th for a formal vote would be that's what I am proposing, and I'll make that as a motion.
Okay, and please restate your motion in just a sentence or two.
I move to put a reduction in council size up on the July 7th work session for consideration of ballot language for the 2025 general election.
Okay, that would impact the agenda. And is there anything about what staff's role is on this? So that was not part of your motion. What's the direction to staff, if any, other than to create the agenda item?
Create the agenda item on the 7th. We'll work up the ballot language. On the 28th or on the 21st, we'll review the ballot language again at the work session. And then on the 28th, it would go on the regular business agenda for an up or down vote to go on the ballot.
So staff's responsibility would be to generate the ballot language for discussion on the July 7th meeting.
Between the 7th and taking direction from the July 7th meeting with draft language on the 21st and then a formal up or down vote on the 28th.
Okay, so they wouldn't have to have the language for the
No.
7th, but after taking that discussion. Okay, thank you for that clarification. There was a second, Councilmember Kennedy. Council, you have that motion before you. I'm going to ask Gina to clarify something about our initiative process. I know what the answer is going to be because I've already discussed this with her, but the concern I have is this was not on our agenda tonight. Councilmember Aspenleiter, we knew he was interested in the topic, and we appreciate his giving a heads up on that, and we also appreciate his emailing something out to the council. The council is not the public. So is this something that can be voted on? You've heard the motion, Gina, tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, I believe that it's appropriate for council to vote on this initiative. The initiative is directing staff to take some action. It's not council taking any final action. Montana law requires that adequate notice and that this council ensure that there's adequate notice to the public for the public to be able to participate before final council action on matters that are of significant interest to the public. This council initiatives are directing staff. It's not final action. And that final action would come later, which would be noticed up properly at a work session and also at the final or the regular business meeting where council would actually vote to approve or place something on the ballot or approve an ordinance or whatever the case may be. So yes, it's my opinion that initiatives can be brought up to direct staff, and that's not final action by this council.
Okay, thank you. So you have a motion, council, before you. Discussion now on the motion. I'll start it. I'm going to vote against it. Largely on a procedural issue. I don't know that I agree with Gina. This is being popped on. Also a very, very important thing, and the council doesn't know, or I'm sorry, the public doesn't know what we're doing. I don't think, I haven't tried to research it, but my understanding has always been that any item of discussion is of public interest, not just final action. But even if it's not legally required, I just don't think it's good practice and good policy. So, further discussion. Councilmember Rupsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I tend to agree with that. I think we've had kind of the established practice here that we should present initiatives, or at least give everybody a heads up that we are putting an initiative on an agenda for consideration. And so we should have had that. That being said, this is not the major structural change that we just discussed. This really actually is a few words in the charter without any real consequential change to the form of government itself. So I'll support the idea of having the discussion. I probably won't support the idea of the reduction for a number of reasons we'll get into, but I don't think our issues here are structural so much as cultural. So I don't know that a change in the numbers, while I might feel good, will actually solve the problems that we're trying to solve. But for tonight's purpose, just to get this on to have the conversation, I'm open to it. So I'll vote in favor of it.
Very good. Further discussion, Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I tend to agree with you. I think as long as we've been on the council, there has been a practice that we've always tried to notify people well in advance that there's an initiative to come. Councilmember Kennedy has done it, got on our agenda. And so I think having this now at the last minute really doesn't give us a whole lot of time to consider and think through this. And I agree with Councilmember Ripsis, and as I've thought through this, there's a lot of different reasons why I would eventually vote against this anyway. And so there's no, in my opinion, there's no reason to even put this on a work session to waste the staff's time to go through it. It's not just a few words of change. It's a huge change to our community in the way they're represented. And I think that would be harmful to our community. So I won't support putting this on the initiative.
Very good. Further discussion? Proceed to a vote. Okay, we'll move to a vote. I think you remember Councilmember Aspenleiter's motion is to, and correct me if I'm wrong, this would be go on July 7th agenda. Based on that, staff may get further direction to develop the language. But at this point, the immediate issue before us is to put this item on a July 7th work session for further discussion. So if in favor of the motion, please say aye. If opposed, nay. Nay. I think we need a voice or a hand vote. So the yeas, please raise your hand. Shaw, Gulick, Owen, Rogers, Kennedy. Holy smokes. Okay. The nays. Councilmember Neese and Cole. I can count that. If I just looked, I would have, okay. Okay, motion passes handily. Very good. That, I think, are we done? We're done in more ways than one. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good evening. Oh, I apologize. Well, let's see. No, we've already had public comment on non-agenda items. So I think we really are done. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.